Across the world, ancient mysteries are still waiting to be revealed. From forgotten cities and strange artifacts to traces of vanished civilizations, questions remain. Did our ancestors once possess technology far beyond our imagination? Join me as we explore the mysteries of human history in today's video. Number 1. The Mummy's Curse on the Titanic. Legend, disaster, and a haunting that transcends time. On the 10th of April, 1912, the legendary ship Titanic departed from the port of Southampton, England, carrying 2,224 passengers and crew members. This was its first transatlantic journey, and also the final voyage of what was then the largest ship ever built. But few people knew that behind the glamorous facade of the Titanic was a mysterious story about a curse from an Egyptian mummy that, even to this day, many still believe played a part in sealing the ship's tragic fate. This strange story began in the late 19th century in Egypt, when a group of British archaeologists accidentally discovered the mummy of a powerful female priestess who had lived around 1500 BC. The mummy was perfectly preserved inside an ornate sarcophagus, decorated with numerous warnings written in Egyptian hieroglyphs carved into its surface. One of the inscriptions clearly spelled out a terrifying curse. "Whoever dares to disturb my eternal sleep will face a dreadful disaster." Despite warnings from local people and the frightening curse inscribed on the sarcophagus, the team of archaeologists decided to take the mummy back to England for display in a museum. From the very start of the transport, many strange incidents began to occur. The local workers involved one by one suffered accidents or fell ill under mysterious circumstances, and some even died in unusual ways. Nevertheless, the mummy was still brought onto a ship to be transported back to England. When it arrived in London, the situation became even more frightening. Scientists who took part in studying the mummy were struck by a series of personal tragedies, ranging from traffic accidents to mysterious illnesses with no clear cause. Even museum staff refused to work near the sarcophagus, as they always felt a chilling cold and an unbearable heaviness whenever they came close. Rumors about the mummy's curse spread rapidly among the British aristocracy and the wealthy upper class. In order to avoid the continuing misfortunes, the coffin's owner decided to sell it to a wealthy American collector. This billionaire made the decision to take the mummy to America for display at a museum in New York. And the means of transportation he chose was none other than the famous Titanic, which was preparing for its first voyage. From the moment the mummy was brought onto the Titanic, strange stories quickly circulated among the crew. The sailors whispered to each other about mysterious noises coming from the cargo hold, and some passengers said they felt uneasy whenever they passed by the area where the coffin was kept. Still, most passengers dismissed these rumors as mere superstition with no basis. But then, on the night of the 14th of April, 1912, everything changed forever. The Titanic, while gliding across the icy Atlantic, suddenly collided with a huge iceberg. In less than 3 hours, the great ship, once hailed as unsinkable, broke apart and sank to the bottom of the ocean. After the disaster, stories about the mummy's curse on the Titanic resurfaced with even greater intensity. Some survivors claimed that as the Titanic was sinking, they saw the shadowy figure of an Egyptian woman in ancient attire standing on the deck. Stories like this spread widely and led many people to put even more faith in the terrifying curse of the Egyptian mummy. However, historians have presented differing views. Some experts insist that there was never any Egyptian mummy recorded in the official cargo or luggage lists of the Titanic. They believe that the story of the curse was simply a product of people's imagination at the time, invented to explain tragedies that were otherwise unexplainable by science. Even so, there are still many strange details that cannot be fully explained. Supporters of the curse theory argue that it's very possible the mummy was secretly brought onto the ship and not listed in official records out of fear of alarming the passengers. And it was precisely this act that brought the Titanic the tragic fate now recorded in history. To this day, the mystery of the mummy's curse on the Titanic still has no clear answer. Was it truly an ancient curse that sent the Titanic to the bottom of the ocean, or just a frightening coincidence born out of a chain of misfortunes? Number 2. The legend of the secret cave and ancient Egyptian relics. When most people think about the Grand Canyon, what comes to mind is its breathtaking scenery and the Colorado River winding through layers of colorful stone. But beneath that familiar surface lies a legend that once set America abuzz. In 1909, the Arizona Gazette published a story that, even to this day, remains hotly debated. At the center of the story was Kincaid, a courageous explorer who traveled by boat along Marble Canyon. According to his account, while observing the sheer rock faces, he noticed a strange mark on the mountainside and decided to climb up for a closer look. As he drew near, Kincaid realized this was not a natural crevice, but an entrance that had been carefully carved out by someone. Kincaid described how he had to crawl through a long, dark tunnel before stepping into a vast chamber as large as the heart of some ancient temple. There, his lantern's glow fell upon hundreds of mummies laid neatly on stacked stone shelves. All around were bronze objects, weapons with unusual designs, and a wealth of golden bowls, clay jars, and exquisitely decorated artifacts. On the stone walls, he saw lines of hieroglyphs that, according to Kincaid, did not resemble any script from the local native tribes he knew. Right then, he began to suspect that these were traces of a civilization that had crossed the ocean to this land. Kincaid even wondered if the ancient Egyptians themselves had once set foot here and left behind a trove of treasures now lost to time beneath the Grand Canyon. After this extraordinary discovery, Kincaid reported his findings to Professor Jordan of the Smithsonian Institution. The Smithsonian was said to have sent an entire archaeological team to study the mysterious cave. Supposedly, they mapped the tunnels, catalogued the artifacts, and secretly transported the treasure back to the nation's capital. But then, something strange happened. Everything went silent. There were no photos of the cave, no artifacts displayed, no official reports released, and no one seemed to know what truly happened next. When asked about this story, representatives from the Smithsonian insisted that no such excavation or Egyptian artifact discovery ever took place at the Grand Canyon. They stressed that there was never any evidence of mummies, artifacts, or archaeological proof of ancient Egyptians in that region. This only made the legend of the secret cave even more mysterious and compelling. Many believe the government deliberately hid the evidence so history would not have to be rewritten. Meanwhile, skeptics argue that the whole thing was just a hoax meant to attract attention at the dawn of the 20th century. To this day, no one has been able to verify whether Kincaid's story was true or merely a work of imagination. Even so, the legend of a cave filled with mummies and Egyptian treasure deep inside the Grand Canyon endures as one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. The story not only sparks curiosity about whether ancient people once crossed the ocean, but it also stands as a symbol of our passion for discovery and those dark corners of history that have never been fully brought into the light. Number 3. The Doomsday Prophecy from the tomb of Queen Khentkaus III. In the vast Egyptian desert, more than 4,500 years ago, the tomb of Queen Khentkaus III still lay quietly, hidden beneath the thick layers of sand built up over time. She was the wife of Pharaoh Neferefre, living during the Old Kingdom, one of the most brilliant and mysterious periods in ancient Egyptian history. However, what makes the tomb of Khentkaus III truly remarkable is not just its location or the treasures buried with her, but the haunting messages discovered by archaeologists during the excavation. When scientists began to excavate the tomb, they found not only familiar artifacts, but also noticed strange traces in the records left behind. These signs pointed to a period of great turmoil when a once mighty ancient dynasty was beginning to face an unstoppable decline. Archaeologists noted that, by the end of the Old Kingdom, the floods of the Nile had become more unpredictable than ever before. Severe droughts occurred repeatedly, making the land dry and barren, causing failed harvests and making the tax system ineffective. As wheat and other food production dropped sharply, the state gradually lost its ability to maintain order and provide for both the nobility and ordinary people. What was especially notable was that, inside the tomb of Khentkaus III, researchers also discovered walls inscribed with lines of lamentation about famine. These very records have helped modern researchers better understand the reasons that led to the collapse of Egypt's Old Kingdom. Professor Miroslav Barta remarked that the combination of climate change, prolonged drought, and internal conflict drove the Egyptian empire to the brink of collapse. In less than 2 centuries after Khentkaus III died, the flow of the Nile gradually dried up, and the entire ancient Egyptian society fell into chaos, marking the beginning of the First Intermediate Period, a time filled with instability. Number 4. The mystery of Enki, the creation of mankind, and the Anunnaki gods. If we look back at the ancient mythology of the Sumerians, we find a world filled with powerful gods, each one directly shaping the fate of humankind. Among these deities, the group known as the Anunnaki stands out above all. They were called those who came from heaven and held a central role in stories about the origins of humanity. According to Sumerian belief, the Anunnaki were not just supreme gods, they were also the very beings who laid the first foundations for human existence. Legend has it that, at a time when the gods grew weary of having to labor themselves to keep the world in order, they decided to create a new species to serve them. That was when the god Enki, also known as Ea, appeared alongside the goddess Ninhursag in the role of creator. Together, they took clay from the riverbed, mixed it with the blood of a sacrificed god, and from that, mankind was born. In this tale, Enki is not just the god of water and wisdom, he is also the one who gave humanity the breath of life, transforming them from lifeless clay into living beings who could think, work, and worship the gods. But the story doesn't end there. As humans began to develop and live with more freedom, they became less obedient than the gods had hoped. Disobedience, pride, and actions that went against the will of the gods sparked great anger among these divine beings. The result was a series of disasters, most famously the Great Flood, a catastrophe that swept away everything Enki had created. Even so, in some versions of the myth, Enki quietly helps humanity survive the wrath of the other gods, showing both compassion and faith in the human ability to overcome. Today, many modern theories have been put forward to explain these ancient stories. Some suggest that the Anunnaki were not gods in the traditional religious sense at all, but could have been extraterrestrial beings, what some now call ancient astronauts, who came to Earth thousands of years ago. According to this theory, the creation of humans was not simply a myth, but perhaps a form of genetic intervention, with advanced beings using their technology to shape our very species. Number 5. The disappearance of the city of Heraklion. In the summer of 2000, underwater archaeologists unexpectedly discovered the impressive ruins of an ancient city that had been lying submerged beneath the Mediterranean Sea, about 6 kilometers off the coast of Egypt. When the team of divers and specialists first approached these structures, they could hardly believe their eyes. Beneath the cold, shadowy waters, massive stone statues, majestic temples, and traces of bustling ancient harbors appeared before them astonishingly intact after thousands of years. This city was once known as Heraklion, and its disappearance beneath the sea has become one of the greatest archaeological mysteries in the world. Heraklion, called Thonis by the ancient Egyptians, was once one of the richest and most important commercial cities of the Mediterranean. Built in the 8th century BC, the city flourished thanks to its strategic location right at the mouth of the Nile River, linking Egypt to distant lands such as Greece and other neighboring countries. As a crucial gateway for trade, Heraklion quickly became an international commercial hub. But Heraklion was not only famous for its wealth and trade, it was also a major religious center, hosting grand festivals in honor of the god Amun-Gereb. Heraklion's massive temple welcomed thousands of pilgrims each year, with solemn rituals and ceremonies that drew Egyptian nobles, as well as visitors from across distant lands. In many ways, Heraklion embodied the prosperity and power of ancient Egypt. However, around the 2nd century BC, everything began to change. Ancient records note that Heraklion gradually lost its commercial significance as the city founded by Alexander the Great rapidly surpassed it. Yet that was not the main reason for its ultimate downfall. Modern researchers, based on newly excavated evidence, believe that Heraklion faced a series of devastating natural disasters, especially the phenomenon known as soil liquefaction. Soil liquefaction is a terrifying geological process. When an earthquake strikes, the ground beneath a city can shake so violently that layers of wet sand beneath the surface turn from solid to liquid, causing enormous structures like temples and statues to suddenly sink beneath the sea. Some scientists believe a massive earthquake, accompanied by a tsunami around the year 365 AD, sealed Heracleon's fate forever, turning what was once a symbol of power and prosperity into a city forgotten beneath the waves. After that, Heracleon all but disappeared from historical memory. For centuries afterward, the city was known only through vague writings from ancient historians. It was not until the year 2000, when a research team led by French underwater archaeologist Frank Goddio happened upon these underwater ruins, that the truth slowly began to surface. When they first approached the submerged remains, archaeologists found not only enormous stone statues still standing, but also unearthed ancient coins, ceramic vessels, jewelry, and hundreds of other precious artifacts. One of the most astonishing discoveries was the giant stone statue of Hapi, the god who ruled over the legendary Nile River, along with a multitude of ancient shipwrecks still filled with cargo. During their studies, experts also found ancient stone stelae carved with hieroglyphics, describing in detail religious festivals, administrative decrees, and, most importantly, accounts of natural disasters that struck the city. These findings helped reinforce the theory that repeated catastrophes were the reason Heracleon gradually declined and was finally swallowed by the sea. Although research continues, to this day, fully unraveling the disappearance of Heracleon remains a major challenge for the scientific community. Are there still more secrets buried beneath the deep mud and sand of the ocean floor? Despite so many unanswered questions, the discovery of Heracleon has given both scientists and all of us a vivid, tangible look at the fragility of great civilizations throughout history. What do you think truly happened to Heracleon in those fateful final days? And could we yet find more secrets hidden beneath the deep sea? Number 6. Ancient nuclear catastrophe, Mohenjo-Daro. If you ever thought that destructive technology was only a story of the 20th century, take a moment to learn about Mohenjo-Daro, an ancient city of the Indus Valley civilization. Around 4,500 years ago, Mohenjo-Daro was a thriving metropolis, remarkable for its surprisingly advanced urban planning. The city featured straight roads, systematically organized residential quarters, intricate water channels, and especially vast public bathhouses. These achievements show that the people of Mohenjo-Daro had mastered principles of construction, engineering, and urban management from a very early time. However, what has made Mohenjo-Daro the subject of intense debate lies in the mysterious traces of destruction that remain. When archaeologists excavated this city, they found many bricks and pottery shards that had been melted or deformed, as if they had been subjected to the extreme heat of a thermonuclear explosion. Even more striking, layers of ash with signs of radioactivity were recorded in many areas of the city. Particularly notable was the discovery of human skeletons that remained completely intact, as if the entire city had been wiped out in a single instant. Researcher David Davenport spent 12 years investigating this mystery and put forward a bold hypothesis. Mohenjo-Daro was once the victim of an ancient nuclear disaster. In his book, Atomic Destruction in 2000 BC, he pointed out that material evidence such as melted bricks, radioactive ash, and undisturbed skeletons all matched the aftermath of an atomic explosion. Beyond the physical evidence, many scholars have connected this catastrophe to ancient Indian legends. In the epic Mahabharata, the Brahmastra, a weapon of unimaginable power, was described as producing a light as bright as 1,000 suns, burning everything in its path, and leaving lingering effects similar to radiation sickness. Some legends even mention victims losing their hair and nails, and water sources becoming contaminated, details that are eerily similar to the aftermath of a real nuclear blast. The story of Mohenjo-Daro also brings an unsettling connection to modern times. Robert Oppenheimer, known as the father of the atomic bomb, after witnessing the first test of nuclear weapons in New Mexico in 1945, famously quoted the Bhagavad Gita, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Oppenheimer had a deep interest in Indian philosophy and legends, prompting many to wonder, did modern scientists unintentionally recreate a force that an ancient civilization once knew? Number 7. Betty and Barney Hill, the trip with no way back. In 1960, Betty and Barney Hill were living a quiet life in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Betty was in her early 40s and worked in social services, while Barney, 3 years younger, was a postal worker and an active advocate for civil rights. They both led private lives and rarely shared much about themselves with others. But on one autumn night in 1961, everything familiar to them was about to vanish forever. That evening, they were returning home from a short trip to Niagara Falls with their small dog. As they drove along an empty stretch of highway through the White Mountains, something completely unexpected appeared. It was around 10 p.m. when Betty noticed a strange light in the sky. The light hovered near the moon, then suddenly started to move. At first, she thought it might be a shooting star, but then it changed direction and began to grow larger, so much so that she couldn't look away. Betty told Barney to pull over, and when she looked through their binoculars, she saw that the object had the shape of a disc with many lights along its side. Barney, who was a war veteran and had served in World War II, initially guessed that it was a satellite or an experimental aircraft. But as the object quietly moved closer until it was just about 100 feet from them, Barney knew all of his earlier guesses no longer made sense. Barney got out of the car, holding a handgun. Looking up at the strange craft through the binoculars, he froze when he saw what was behind the windows. Beings shaped like people. They were small, with large heads, dressed in grey uniforms, and had deep black eyes. Barney didn't hear any sound, but a voice seemed to echo inside his head, telling him to put down the gun. Terrified, he ran back to the car and yelled that they had to leave immediately. But just as Barney started the engine, a loud beeping sound came from behind them, and both he and Betty suddenly felt their bodies freeze. They couldn't move or even think, and then they both passed out. When they regained consciousness, Betty and Barney realized they were more than 30 miles away from where they had first stopped, with no memory of how they had gotten there. Their watches had both stopped at the same time. Betty's dress was torn at the zipper and covered in a strange pink powder, and Barney's shoes were scuffed as if he had walked across sharp rocks. When they finally got home, they discovered they had arrived more than 3 hours later than expected. 2 hours were simply missing, and neither of them could explain what had happened during that time. After that night, Betty began having vivid dreams for 5 nights in a row. In her dreams, she and her husband were taken aboard a shiny metallic craft, where strange beings with grey skin and large eyes performed medical tests on both of them. Betty woke up and wrote down every detail but was afraid to tell Barney, worried he would think she was losing her mind. Meanwhile, Barney suffered from insomnia and exhaustion, while the weight of memories he couldn't quite reach continued to haunt him. By November, the couple decided to seek help from an organization that studied unexplained aerial phenomena. Investigators quickly realized that what should have been a 4-hour drive had turned into a 7-hour ordeal. And the biggest question was what really happened during those lost hours. 2 years later, they went to see Dr. Benjamin Simon, a renowned psychiatrist in Boston, hoping to find answers for their fear. Through several separate hypnosis sessions, their memories of that strange night slowly came back. Both recalled being taken aboard a craft with curved corridors and blinding white lights. The extraterrestrial beings performed bizarre medical experiments on their bodies. Betty remembered the pain of a long needle piercing her stomach, while Barney felt a strange device being placed on his abdomen. Both also described the beings' curiosity about Barney's dentures and even the color of their skin. There was one detail that made the story even more mysterious. Betty recounted being shown a 3-dimensional star map. One being, whom she called the leader, pointed out stars connected by straight lines, as if tracing interstellar trade routes. While under hypnosis, Betty drew this map with stars of different sizes. Years later, an astronomer named Marjorie Fish studied Betty's sketch and suggested it matched the Zeta Reticuli star system, located about 40 light-years from Earth. Later, the Hubble telescope even confirmed that the stars Betty drew existed in that region. Still, some scientists believed the map was too vague to draw any final conclusions. Many theories have been proposed. Some psychologists argued that Betty and Barney had experienced a shared hallucination brought on by stress and anxiety. Others believed the story was a product of Betty's imagination. and that Barney simply went along with his wife's feelings. However, under hypnosis, the details in their accounts were strangely consistent, and Dr. Simon confirmed that neither showed signs of lying. There were also skeptics who suspected they made up the story for attention. But at that time, sharing an alien abduction story only brought trouble, and the Hills never profited from their experience. Today, many UFO researchers believe Betty and Barney truly went through something science still can't explain. They see the star map and the pink powder as possible evidence of contact with extraterrestrial life. More than 60 years later, the story of Betty and Barney Hill remains one of the greatest mysteries of modern America. Their experience has inspired countless books, films, and endless debate. Perhaps no one will ever know exactly what happened on that fateful night. Did Betty and Barney really get taken aboard a spaceship, or was it all the product of fear and the imagination? Whatever the truth, their story will live on for a long time, at least until humanity finally comes face to face with beings from another world. Number 8. The legendary labyrinth of the Minotaur, Greece. Since ancient times, the island of Crete in Greece has been tied to one of the most famous legends of the ancient world. The story of the Minotaur, a monstrous creature held captive in a massive labyrinth, a place where only those who were both clever and brave could ever find their way out. The image of the labyrinth, with its tangled and mysterious corridors, has become a haunting symbol in Western culture for thousands of years. But the question remains, did such a labyrinth truly exist in history? For decades, archaeologists and historians have been searching tirelessly for the real Minotaur's labyrinth. They have focused their efforts on 3 main locations on the island of Crete and also on mainland Greece, each with underground Cretan 2000 by tunnels and architectural features so complex that they seem almost unbelievable. The first stop is the Palace of Knossos, the heart of the ancient Minoan civilization. When Knossos was discovered in the early 20th century, it stunned researchers with a network of rooms and corridors that seemed endless. Many archaeologists became convinced that this was the true inspiration for the legend of the Minotaur. Indeed, anyone who sets foot here cannot help but feel lost, as if stepping into a living myth. However, not everyone agrees with this theory. Some researchers argue that the real labyrinth must be located at Gortyn, an ancient city about 20 miles south of Knossos. Here, there is a tangled network of stone tunnels known as the Labyrinth Cave. Local people believe these cold, dark passageways are the true prison of the Minotaur. Inside, the winding corridors are enough to make anyone lose their way or even become hopelessly disoriented in total darkness. But the search doesn't end there. Another theory suggests that the legendary labyrinth is not on the island of Crete at all, but somewhere on the Greek mainland. Some researchers point to other ancient tunnel systems with incredibly complex structures that have been found in several locations across the mainland, though no clear evidence has been found to directly link them to the Minotaur legend. Debate among archaeologists continues to this day. Perhaps it is this very ambiguity that gives the Minotaur legend its lasting power. Whether among the ancient stone corridors of Knossos, in the darkness of Gortyn's tunnels, or somewhere else on the Greek mainland, the truth of the labyrinth remains intact in the imagination of countless generations. Number 9. Evidence of ancient humans from 12,000 years ago. Over tens of thousands of years, the Grand Canyon has quietly preserved countless traces of the ancient cultures that once lived and thrived here. Archaeologists have repeatedly uncovered astonishing artifacts scattered throughout the caves, crevices, and ancient layers of earth within the Grand Canyon. Among the most remarkable discoveries are the Clovis and Folsom points, 2 types of weapons that belong to some of the very first prehistoric hunters of North America. These projectile points were crafted with extraordinary skill from hard stone, sharp enough to bring down Ice Age giants like mammoths and ancient bison. What's truly special is that these tools appeared in the Grand Canyon roughly 12,000 years ago, dating back to a time when our ancestors still depended entirely on nature for their survival. Beyond weapons, researchers have also found many small animal figurines made from twigs, which are often believed to be lucky charms used by ancient hunters to pray for a successful hunt. To modern people, these artifacts might seem like simple trinkets, but to ancient humans, they carried spiritual significance and reflected a deep, symbolic view of the world around them. The Grand Canyon is also well known for its legacy of pottery and woven goods created by the basket maker and Puebloan peoples. Baskets, pottery jars, and food storage containers, decorated with intricate geometric patterns, reveal the exceptional craftsmanship and creativity of the communities that once called this place home. The basket maker people were renowned as masters of weaving, while the Puebloan people produced pottery of high artistic value, together painting a vivid picture of the region's rich and enduring cultural heritage. These archaeological discoveries not only prove that the Grand Canyon has served as a home to humans for tens of thousands of years, but they also offer a window into the development and adaptation of ancient cultures as they faced the harsh realities of the natural world. Number 10. Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, the great tomb of the Hellenistic age. If you visit the modern city of Bodrum today, once the site of ancient Halicarnassus on the shores of the Aegean Sea, you are standing on ground that once witnessed one of the most famous wonders of the ancient world, the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus. The story of this monument began around 350 BC, when this land was under the rule of the Persian Empire. At that time, Mausolus, a powerful satrap, decided to build for himself a tomb unlike any structure that had ever existed before. After Mausolus passed away, his wife, Artemisia II, continued the construction as a way to remember and honor her husband. What made this tomb truly extraordinary was not only its massive scale, but also the harmonious blend of three great architectural traditions: Greek, Egyptian, and Lydian. The most renowned architects and sculptors of the era were invited to Halicarnassus to take part in its design and construction. Two talented architects, Satyros and Pythias of Priene, created a rectangular structure with a solid foundation and a distinctive stepped pyramid roof. Atop the roof stood an enormous, intricately carved chariot statue drawn by 4 horses, symbolizing power and victory. Each side of the mausoleum was a true work of art, entrusted to 4 of the greatest sculptors of the time: Scopas, Leochares, Timotheus, and Bryaxis. They created reliefs and stone statues depicting gods, warriors, and vibrant mythological stories. Every tiny detail on these reliefs radiated sophistication and creativity, forming a symphony of art that was unmatched in the history of Western architecture. The Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, towering about 45 meters above the heart of the ancient city, stood as proof of the convergence of many cultures and humanity's desire for immortality. It became a symbol of power not just for Mausolus and Artemisia II, but also a testament to the creative force of the Hellenistic age, known throughout the world. Today, although only the foundations and a few large stones remain in Bodrum, the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus is still remembered as a timeless icon. It reminds the world of the dazzling development of ancient art and architecture, and of the creative spirit and ambition to push beyond human limits that existed thousands of years ago. Number 11. Metallurgy and the art of craftsmanship. As society advanced, the Sumerians quickly realized they needed better tools and weapons if they were going to maintain productivity, defend their communities, and demonstrate power in the face of rival city-states. That need drove them to seek out and exploit the resources that nature provided, especially rare and valuable metals. Gold was the first metal the Sumerians were able to gather, thanks to its natural presence in the riverbeds around Mesopotamia. The Sumerians didn't have to work too hard to find small flecks of gold mixed in with the river sand, and from there, they learned how to craft simple jewelry by flattening, hammering, and shaping it into earrings, necklaces, or beautifully crafted pendants. These pieces were both decorative and a clear symbol of the owner's wealth and power, but gold was much too soft for use as a tool or weapon. So, the Sumerians had to search for another metal that could meet the tougher demands of everyday life. That led them to copper, but extracting and working with this metal was no easy task. Copper ore didn't appear naturally on the Mesopotamian plain. It was buried deep in the Zagros Mountains, hundreds of rugged miles from their cities. Mining teams and traders had to cross deserts and treacherous mountains just to bring back heavy, blue-green lumps of copper ore. Once they secured this precious material, the Sumerians had to learn to build clay furnaces, stoke them with charcoal, and used simple blowpipes to raise the temperature above 1,000 degrees Celsius. Only under that intense heat would the copper ore finally melt and settle to the bottom of the furnace as liquid metal. It's likely the Sumerians first discovered this process by accident, noticing copper ore melting when they fired pottery. From there, through patient trial and error, they learned to control the fire, build sturdier kilns, and make clay molds for casting axes, knives, or spearheads for work and warfare. But the Sumerians soon realized that pure copper was still too soft and would deform with use. Through practical experience and careful observation, they discovered that mixing a small amount of tin with copper produced a much stronger alloy, what we now call bronze. The Sumerians' preferred recipe was usually 9 parts copper to 1 part tin, showing they weren't just relying on luck but had truly built up a deep, hands-on understanding of materials even if they didn't have the kind of scientific concepts we use today. Bronze tools and weapons soon became widespread, from agricultural axes to military daggers and spearheads. And these bronze products became a symbol of the power of ancient Sumer. Metallurgy demanded more than just persistence and creativity. It also required close coordination between craftsmen, merchants, and miners. Copper and tin ores were often filled with impurities, so the Sumerians had to use charcoal to purify the metal and raise its quality, even though this process would easily crack kilns and release harmful smoke that was dangerous to their health. Keeping the temperature just right and maintaining a steady fire was a real art, because a single mistake could ruin the entire batch, turning weeks of work to ash. And these precious materials had to be carried back across mountain ranges on long, grueling journeys, relying on a wide trade network that linked the many city-states of Mesopotamia. One thing that amazes modern researchers is just how quickly Sumerian metallurgical technology advanced. In just a few short centuries, they went from using crude stone tools to producing large quantities of high-quality bronze weapons and implements. And there's almost no evidence of the mistakes or failures you might expect in the archaeological record. No broken kilns, no cracked or ruined metals, and no major batches of flawed goods. This has led some scholars to wonder whether the Sumerians might have learned the secrets of metallurgy from another culture, but so far, no similar techniques have been found anywhere else from the same period. Still, the mystery of how the Sumerians managed to reach such heights remains a question that archaeologists and historians have yet to fully answer. And it's that sense of mystery that keeps the story of the Sumerians so fascinating, reminding us that human creativity really can transcend the limits of any era. Number 12. The first white men to reach the New World, Hernán Cortés and the Aztec Empire. In the spring of 1519, people living along the Mexican coast began to notice a strange sight on the horizon. They saw large ships with white sails, unlike anything they had ever witnessed before. As these vessels slowly approached the shore, the initial curiosity quickly turned into fear. On board were men with very pale skin, brown or blonde hair, wearing shining armor and carrying metal weapons that the natives had never seen. Even more astonishing were the giant four-legged creatures, horses, as they would come to be known because the Aztecs had never seen a horse in real life. Each hoofbeat sent up clouds of dust, creating an atmosphere filled with awe and dread. Leading this group of white men was Hernán Cortés, a Spanish explorer. When Cortés and his party set foot on land, they became the strangest visitors the Aztecs had ever faced in their history. With their unusual clothing, powerful weapons, and majestic horses, they seemed like warriors from a completely different world. At that time, a legend lived deep in the hearts of the Aztecs about the god Quetzalcoatl. According to the stories, Quetzalcoatl was the deity who brought knowledge, art, and creativity to the Aztec people. After a dramatic event, the god left his land and journeyed eastward across the ocean, leaving behind a prophecy that one day he would return. These tales had been passed down through generations and had become an inseparable part of Aztec belief. When news about the white men and their strange beasts reached the capital, Tenochtitlan, Emperor Montezuma II was deeply troubled. Day after day, he received reports of mysterious weapons that made thunderous noises, of ships as tall as towers, and of people with strange powers. Montezuma did not know how to respond, haunted by the fear that this was the moment Quetzalcoatl would return, as foretold in the prophecy. Some accounts say that when Montezuma met Cortés, he was extremely respectful and welcomed Cortés as a god. Spanish records claim that Montezuma surrendered his throne, treasures, and even the power of the Aztec Empire to Cortés, believing it was a destiny set long ago. Whatever the reality, the way Cortés was received opened the way for the Spanish to move deep into the heart of the Aztec Empire with almost no serious resistance. In just 2 years, an entire brilliant civilization that had existed for centuries collapsed completely before the might of the Europeans. The story of Cortés and this fateful encounter has become a prime example of what is known as the white god phenomenon. According to this hypothesis, many indigenous cultures in the Americas mistook the first Europeans to arrive on the continent for legendary gods, leading to tragic misjudgments and disasters for entire peoples. However, many modern historians have questioned the authenticity of this story. Did the Aztecs really believe Cortés was Quetzalcoatl, or was this simply a tale created by the Spanish themselves to glorify their achievements and superiority? Some believe that Spanish documents exaggerated the role of Cortés to hide the political maneuvers and military tactics that were actually used during the conquest. Not stopping there, some scholars have put forward even more daring theories about the origin of the Quetzalcoatl legend. Some suggest that the myth of this white god might have originated from mysterious contacts with Europeans centuries earlier. Other researchers connect the image of Quetzalcoatl with Saint Thomas the Apostle, who is said to have traveled east after the death of Jesus, and there are even hypotheses that the Knights Templar may have crossed the ocean to reach the Americas as early as the 14th century. Although these theories remain controversial and lack solid evidence, they have ensured that the story of Cortés and the Aztecs remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Number 13. Maimond, the enduring mark of an ancient civilization. If you've ever thought that stories of prehistoric times were nothing more than legend, then Maimond will make you reconsider everything. In the arid lands of Kerman Province, Iran, there is a village that has existed for up to 12,000 years. This place stands as living proof of the resilience and ingenuity of ancient people, who chose to settle down and build a stable community right in the heart of the mountain stone. Maimond is unlike any village you've ever known. Instead of pitching tents or building houses from earth, the ancient inhabitants here carved deep into the rock, creating hundreds of small, warm and sturdy rooms. These stone homes have survived through millennia, and even today, about 350 of them remain intact. What's even more remarkable is that the people of Maimond have lived there continuously for more than 3,000 years. Countless generations have grown up beneath those stone roofs, leaving their mark on every wall and every narrow passage. Around the village, archaeologists have discovered many rock carvings nearly 10,000 years old. These simple drawings might be among the first messages that ancient people left for future generations, depicting scenes of hunting, daily life, or even religious ceremonies. However, when researchers searched for evidence of technological advancement, such as pottery, they were in for a surprise. All the pottery they found dated to only about 6,000 years ago, which means that after thousands of years living in rock shelters, the people here only began making ceramics much later, a much slower pace of progress compared to other civilizations around the world. Why did the people of Maimond remain here for so long without rushing into technological change? Perhaps they were content with what nature provided, or maybe great upheavals such as floods or natural disasters caused the community to take a long time to regain its momentum. Later, around 800 BC, Aryan tribes arrived and turned the village into a center for worshipping the sun god Mithras. They continued using the stone houses, conducting religious ceremonies, and treating the place as sacred ground where people could connect with the divine. The mountains surrounding the village became symbols of steadfastness and endurance, while the sunlight streaming through the rocks rekindled the community's spirit and faith. Today, if you ever set foot in Maimond, you'll find a scene that has changed very little over thousands of years. The stone houses still stand, silent and ancient amid the wild landscape. Number 14. The mystery of Scota's tomb, the Egyptian princess in Ireland. Amid the rolling green hills of County Kerry in southwest Ireland, there stands a large solitary stone, set quietly within the peaceful landscape. Locals call this place Scota's grave. For centuries, people have passed down the tale that this is the final resting place of Scota, a mysterious Egyptian princess who crossed distant seas to set foot on this land. The story of Skota began to appear in medieval manuscripts, mainly around the 12th century, when chroniclers in Ireland and Scotland sought to trace the origins of their people. In most records, Skota is described as the daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh, most often referred to as Pharaoh Chenkres. Sometimes his name is mistakenly written as Chinggis, but most sources agree that Skota was of royal Egyptian descent. According to legend, she did not remain in her homeland but instead set out with her husband for Egypt. The two had a son named Goed el Glas, who was later said to have created the Gaelic language by combining many tongues after the fall of the Tower of Babel. For the Irish, that story was both a legend and an explanation for the origins of their language and their people. In another version of the legend, Skota is described as the wife of Mil Espine, a warrior king from the Iberian Peninsula. Their descendants are considered to be the ancestors of both the Irish and the Scots. The term Scot, which later came to describe people living in Ireland and Scotland, is believed to have originated from Skota's own name. The tale of this Egyptian princess is not only preserved in ancient chronicles but has also become a source of pride and an indispensable part of local folklore. However, when modern historians examine these legends, most agree that they were likely invented to provide the Celtic tribes with a noble origin. Still, there are puzzling details that scientists have yet to fully explain. Among archaeological discoveries, the skull of a Barbary ape was once found at an ancient site in Ireland. This species of monkey is native to North Africa and was particularly common in ancient Egypt, so its presence in a remote place like Ireland has stirred considerable debate among archaeologists. Furthermore, advances in modern science have raised new questions about this mystery. At the end of the 20th century, researchers analyzed the DNA of a woman's skeleton dated to about 5,200 years ago, found near Belfast in Northern Ireland. The genetic tests showed that this woman shared characteristics with ancient populations from the Middle East. This finding suggests that there were migrations or exchanges between Ireland and distant eastern lands long before the legends of Skota ever appeared. Even so, not everyone is convinced by these romantic connections between ancient Egypt and Ireland. In 1999, an archaeological team conducted a thorough investigation at the site known as Skota's Grave. After their survey and analysis, experts concluded that there was not enough evidence to identify this as a significant archaeological site or as the real burial place of any Egyptian princess. Yet, the grave and the story of Skota continue to live on in the hearts of the Irish people as an unsolved mystery and as a part of the search for the deepest roots of the Celtic people. Number 15. The origins of ancient monsters. When night falls and stories are passed around the campfire, humanity has always been haunted by the creatures we call monsters. But few people realize that the first image of the vampire did not come from Transylvanian castles or aristocrats with fangs lurking in the shadows. Long before Dracula, and even before European mythology, the ancestors of the blood-sucking demon appeared in Sumerian civilization, one of the earliest cradles of humanity. In the minds of the Sumerians over 5,000 years ago, the earliest vampires were not blood-drinking beings as we imagine today. They were wandering spirits called Edimu ghosts who found no rest because they had been denied burial or were not given proper funeral rites. According to ancient beliefs, Edimu could slip into the homes of the living, drain their life force, and spread disease throughout the community. They did not leave bite marks on their victims' necks but silently took away the very energy of life. From here, the first image of the vampire was born, forever linked to the fear of loss and mysterious death that haunted the civilization of Mesopotamia for generations. But the history of monsters does not end in Mesopotamia. Listen to the chilling legends from the Highlands of Scotland, where the misty forests conceal a type of vampire completely unlike Dracula. Here, people tell tales of the Bauvan Sith vampires who are half human, half deer. They do not hide in darkness wearing long cloaks. Instead, the Bauvan Sith appear as beautiful young women in flowing green dresses. They lure travelers and hunters with enchanting dances. But anyone foolish enough to accept their invitation to dance is taking the last dance of their life. The Bauvan Sith will use their razor-sharp nails to tear flesh and drain every drop of blood from their victims. Though their forms are different, Both the Edimu of Sumer and the Bauvan Sith of Scotland are manifestations of ancient fears about restless death and serve as warnings about forbidden things. From Mesopotamia to Northern Europe, the image of the vampire has constantly evolved, but in the end, it remains a symbol of what humanity cannot explain. Number 16. Pre-Columbian contacts across the Pacific, Polynesia and South America. For centuries, most people believed that the vast oceans had kept ancient civilizations apart, making contact between them impossible until European explorers like Christopher Columbus appeared. However, there is growing evidence that daring transoceanic voyages took place long before Europeans ever set foot in the New World. One of the most debated stories involves the epic journeys of the Polynesians across the Pacific Ocean. Around the year 1150 AD, Polynesian sailors may have left their small islands behind to explore the world's largest expanse of open water. They had no compass or paper maps. Instead, they relied entirely on observing the stars to find their way. These navigation skills were passed down from generation to generation and became the key to survival on journeys that could last for months at sea. The most compelling evidence for the theory of early contact is the mysterious presence of sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes originated in South America, yet they were widely cultivated on Polynesian islands long before Europeans discovered the Pacific. Polynesians call sweet potatoes kumara, a name almost identical to kumara in the Quechua language of Peru. The similarity goes beyond the name. The sweet potato appeared in Polynesia hundreds of years before European exploration, raising the possibility that there was contact and exchange between two civilizations separated by thousands of miles of ocean. Further supporting this, archaeologists have found obsidian stone tools with Polynesian characteristics at sites in South America. In the opposite direction, along the coast of Chile, scientists have discovered the bones of ancient Polynesian chickens. These rare physical clues suggest that Polynesians not only reached South America but also brought their plants and animals with them. For a long time, many scholars dismissed this idea, arguing that the Pacific crossing was far too long for primitive wooden canoes. However, modern research has shown that Polynesian double-hulled canoes were extremely well designed for long voyages across the open ocean. Polynesian sailors could track the direction of ocean swells, the movement of clouds, and even the color of the water to determine their position. These skills allowed them to make journeys that Westerners once thought impossible. The greatest achievement of modern science is genetic analysis. When scientists conducted DNA studies on indigenous communities in Polynesia and South America, they discovered genetic exchange between the two groups. This means that before the arrival of Europeans, Polynesians and South Americans had already met, and possibly lived and married together. These discoveries have changed the traditional view of world history. They show that ancient civilizations were not as isolated as we once thought. If Polynesian sailors could cross the ocean nearly 1,000 years ago, then human history surely still holds many other extraordinary stories that we have yet to discover. Number 17. The Vanishing Island of Bermeja, a mystery in the heart of the Gulf of Mexico. If you open an old maritime chart from the 16th century and look north of the Yucatan Peninsula, chances are you'll find the name Bermeja quietly marking a spot in the heart of the Gulf of Mexico. It was a small island, but one that carried an unsolved mystery for hundreds of years. Spanish explorers first recorded Bermeja's existence as early as 1539, and from that point on, it continued to appear on world maps again and again. For sailors and scholars alike, it was more than just a navigational landmark. It was a symbol of hope, hinting at lands that no one had yet set foot on. But Bermeja's story doesn't end there. As modern science advanced, survey missions using cutting-edge equipment were launched throughout the 20th century. Researchers, survey ships, and even airplanes all zeroed in on the coordinates once recorded for Bermeja, hoping to find traces of this island that had been talked about for centuries. Yet all they found was an endless expanse of open sea, calm and unbroken, without even a rocky outcrop or a sliver of sand in sight. Every attempt to find Bermeja ended in disappointment and growing doubt. Many theories have been proposed to explain this strange disappearance. Some believe powerful earthquakes caused the island to collapse beneath the waves. Others suggest that shifting currents, erosion, and rising sea levels over the centuries gradually erased Bermeja from the map. But whatever the cause, no one has ever produced truly convincing evidence to settle the debate once and for all. What makes the mystery of Bermeja even more extraordinary is its strategic value. If Bermeja truly existed, it would have dramatically expanded Mexico's exclusive economic zone in the Gulf of Mexico, giving the country potential control over a region believed to contain more than 22.5 billion barrels of oil deep below the sea floor. So this isn't just a story about a missing island. It's also about a quiet struggle between international powers to claim some of the most valuable resources in the world. And because of this, a host of conspiracy theories have sprung up. Some believe Bermeja didn't just disappear by chance, but was deliberately destroyed by shadowy forces. There are even claims that the CIA or foreign agencies orchestrated its erasure to shift territorial boundaries as nations negotiated over offshore resources. Of course, none of these bold theories have ever been proven. They remain, for now, in the realm of speculation. In 2009, the Mexican government officially removed Bermeja from all national maps and nautical charts. This decision effectively meant that Mexico lost its claim to a vast stretch of sea and the immense wealth that generations had once hoped for. To this day, Bermeja exists only as a faint name on ancient charts, a haunting reminder of the ocean's enduring mysteries. Number 18. Who was the first pharaoh of Egypt? Across thousands of years of ancient Egyptian history, hundreds of pharaohs rose to power and passed away in magnificent palaces or beneath the silent shadows of great pyramids. But when it comes to identifying the very first pharaoh, everything suddenly becomes unclear. Even today, archaeologists and historians have yet to find a definitive answer about the true identity of this mysterious king. The story of the first pharaoh began around 5,000 years ago, when the land of Egypt was still divided into independent regions. At that time, Egypt consisted of two separate kingdoms, Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the north. According to ancient records, this was an era marked by constant conflict, as local chieftains battled one another for supreme power over the fertile lands along the legendary Nile River. It was during this tumultuous period that a mysterious historical figure emerged. Ancient texts and carvings on stone tablets thousands of years old all suggest that a powerful king ended the chaos and unified the two regions, establishing Egypt's first royal dynasty and opening a new chapter in ancient civilization. However, the true identity of this ruler remains a subject of debate. The ancient Egyptians referred to him as Menes, a legendary figure mentioned in the oldest historical records. But modern archaeologists have found no direct evidence to clearly identify who Menes really was. Today's scholars present two main theories, with the most frequently discussed candidates being Pharaoh Narmer and Pharaoh Hor-Aha. Pharaoh Narmer is known as the king who conquered and ruled over his enemies from Lower Egypt. This is seen as compelling evidence that Narmer was the first to unite the two lands, thus beginning the very first unified Egyptian dynasty. At the same time, Pharaoh Hor-Aha is another figure of great interest among researchers. Archaeological discoveries at Abydos have revealed evidence suggesting that Hor-Aha truly ruled a unified Egypt, with clear traces of centralized power and a newly established administrative system. Some scholars have even suggested that Menes was not a specific individual, but rather a collective name for both Narmer and Hor-Aha, or perhaps a special title given to the first unifier of Egypt. Later, archaeological finds only added to the complexity of the issue. During excavations at Abydos in the early 20th century, researchers uncovered the tombs of both Narmer and Hor-Aha. Narmer's burial site was rather modest, while Hor-Aha was laid to rest with far more elaborate and grand ceremonies. This has left historians even more confused. Was Hor-Aha truly the first ruler of a unified Egypt, taking power after Narmer had only completed the conquest? Despite these long-standing debates, today's scientific community still has not reached a final conclusion about who was truly the first pharaoh of Egypt. Many modern historians believe that precisely identifying this ancient king may forever remain impossible, as historical evidence from this period is exceedingly scarce and ambiguous. In many cases, scholars have accepted that Menes was likely more of a symbol than an actual individual. But this uncertainty is exactly what gives Egyptian history its unique allure. The fact that the identity of the first pharaoh remains a mystery only fuels our curiosity about the earliest days of this remarkable civilization. Was it Nama or Hora-Ha who truly played the most crucial role in forging a unified Egypt? Are there still other secrets lying hidden beneath the earth, waiting to be discovered? Who do you think was truly the first pharaoh in ancient Egyptian history? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 19. The Varangian Guard, Northern Warriors in Byzantium. If you have ever pictured the ancient city of Constantinople, perhaps you imagine its dazzling golden domes, its formidable city walls, and crowds of people streaming in from all corners of the world. Yet one image that few can forget is the mighty imperial bodyguard of the Byzantine emperor, renowned throughout Europe as the Varangian Guard. In the empire's most glorious years, the Varangian Guard always stood out as a symbol of strength and unwavering loyalty. In the beginning, the Varangian soldiers were mainly Scandinavians. Their story began in 988, when Prince Vladimir of Kiev sought to strengthen his rule and forge a lasting alliance with the Byzantine royal family. To achieve this, he sent 6,000 elite Norse warriors to serve under Emperor Basil II. These warriors from the cold northern lands brought not only their physical might, but also an indomitable fighting spirit, quickly becoming an indispensable force in the empire's fiercest battles. When Basil II faced bloody uprisings from rebellious generals and rival factions, it was the Varangian mercenaries who helped him crush the civil wars and restore order to the empire. For their great service, they were not only retained as elite guards, but were also trusted with the most crucial tasks. Many of them were even regarded as brothers in arms, standing by the emperor's side in the most perilous situations. Over time, the ranks of the Varangian Guard gradually expanded to include warriors from other parts of Europe. Anglo-Saxons, Germans, and Slavs all joined, forming a culturally diverse unit that nevertheless maintained a strong Norse identity. The signature weapon of the Varangian Guard was the long-handled axe, with its razor-sharp blade and sturdy shaft. This weapon was powerful enough to split shields and cut through armor, making any enemy think twice before facing them on the battlefield. Watching these warriors standing guard by the emperor's throne, anyone could sense the awe and strength they exuded. After years of service in the imperial palace, some Varangian warriors returned to their Scandinavian homelands. They brought with them tales of adventure from the magnificent city of Eastern Rome, of heroic battles, glory, and loss. Many of their names were carved into ancient rune stones, becoming legends in Norse folklore, reminding future generations of a time when northern warriors played a crucial role in the history of one of the world's greatest empires. Number 20. Tutankhamun's meteorite sword. At the dawn of the 20th century, when archaeologists excavated the tomb of Tutankhamun deep in the Egyptian desert, they uncovered far more than golden statues, dazzling jewelry, or precious artifacts. They discovered a strange weapon, one that would go on to change the world's understanding of ancient Egyptian technology. It was a sword with a gleaming iron blade, its hilt and scabbard made entirely of gold. From the moment it was brought into the light, this sword captured the attention of scientists and the public alike. Its material alone set it apart, but its story would stretch far beyond the bounds of ordinary imagination. Researchers had long known that in Tutankhamun's era, ironworking was extremely rare. At that time, iron was not only more valuable than gold, but also a symbol of ultimate strength and royal power reserved solely for the elite. For nearly a century, the great question lingered. How could the artisans of ancient Egypt forge such a flawless iron blade at a time when much of the world was still struggling with tools made of stone and bronze? It wasn't until 2016 that a team of scientists used X-ray fluorescence technology to analyze the sword's composition, and the secret began to reveal itself in cold, convincing numbers. The analysis showed that the blade contained 11% iron, 0.6% cobalt, and a substantial amount of nickel, an elemental ratio that exists only in iron meteorites that once blazed through the atmosphere and crashed to Earth in ancient times. This discovery opened a new horizon for archaeology, confirming that the ancient Egyptians had used meteoritic iron, a material from beyond our world, to craft a weapon for their young and powerful pharaoh. But the marvel of the sword lies not only in the source of its metal, but in the craftsmanship itself. Researcher Takayuki Matsui of Chiba Institute of Technology in Japan spent years studying this unique sword-making method. He concluded that the Egyptians did not use traditional iron forging techniques. Instead, they forged the blade at low temperatures, a process that preserved the meteorite's natural structure while maintaining the sword's remarkable shine and strength. This technique required not just advanced skill, but the kind of experience passed down through generations. It's a testament to how far ahead the Egyptians were compared to the rest of the world at the time. The story of the meteorite sword became even more intriguing as historians examined the famous collection of diplomatic letters known as the Amarna letters. These documents, written around 3,400 years ago, are considered among the earliest examples of diplomatic correspondence ever discovered. One of the letters describes a gift, an iron sword inlaid with lapis lazuli and paired with a golden scabbard, sent from the king of Mitanni to Pharaoh Amenhotep III. Tutankhamun's grandfather on the occasion of the pharaoh's marriage to a foreign princess. While scientists cannot confirm with certainty whether the sword mentioned in the ancient Amarna letter is the very one now on display in the Cairo Museum, it creates a mysterious link between Egyptian history and the supreme power of the pharaohs. Number 21. William Adams, the Englishman who became a samurai in Japan. In April of 1600, a ship named Deliefda drifted into the southern seas of Japan after a long and tragic journey across the Pacific. When the ship finally reached the shores of Kyushu, it was little more than a battered wreck, with most of its crew dead or exhausted. Among the 24 survivors was an Englishman named William Adams, who had no idea he was about to become the most important foreign figure in early modern Japan. William Adams set foot in Japan at a time when Portuguese and Spanish missionaries had already established a presence in the country. However, he was entirely different from those who had come before, for he was a Protestant and carried no mission to convert anyone. The only things Adams brought to Japan were his knowledge of shipbuilding, navigation, and the latest military technology from Europe. This difference is precisely what drew the attention of Tokugawa Ieyasu, the lord who was on the verge of unifying all of Japan after decades of civil war. Tokugawa Ieyasu saw William Adams as someone who could give him a significant advantage in both technology and military strategy. For this reason, he decided to keep Adams in Japan and made him a close advisor in various fields. Adams began designing and building Western-style warships, training the Japanese in navigation techniques, and helping to upgrade the coastal defenses of the Tokugawa government. Thanks to Adams's assistance, Ieyasu gradually strengthened his naval power and limited the influence of the Portuguese and Spanish forces that were becoming increasingly active in Japan. By 1603, when Tokugawa Ieyasu officially became shogun and ushered in the Edo period, William Adams was granted an honor no foreigner had ever received before. He was made a hatamoto, a samurai in direct service to the shogun, and was given land, a house, and 80 servants. Tokugawa even gave him a Japanese name, Miura Anjin, meaning pilot of Miura, linked to the region where Adams was granted his estate. Though he lived in glory and power, William Adams was never allowed to leave Japan. He spent the rest of his life in this country, married a Japanese woman, had children, and gradually became a part of local society. When the English first established diplomatic relations with Japan in 1613, William Adams played a crucial role in negotiating and signing trade treaties, but he still never returned to his homeland. In the end, he was remembered as the only Western samurai in Japanese history, a figure who inspired countless stories, novels, and even films in later generations. Number 22. The mistaken discovery of the Ushikawa man in Japan. Japan in the 1950s was the site of a discovery that seemed poised to change our understanding of ancient humanity. In the Ushikawa region, more than 100 miles from Tokyo, archaeologists unearthed a number of fossilized bone fragments buried deep within the ancient earth. They believed they had been fortunate enough to find the remains of a primitive human who had lived 20,000 years ago. The so-called Ushikawa man quickly became a topic of fascination, cited in numerous studies as a crucial link in the evolutionary history of the Japanese people. Pride in this discovery lasted for 3 decades. Scientists worked tirelessly to build theories about the appearance, lifestyle, and even the mysteries surrounding the migration of the Ushikawa man. But by the late 1980s, Some experts began to have doubts. Upon closer examination of the bone fragments, they noticed that the shapes did not resemble human bones, but instead bore many characteristics of animal remains. However, at that time, no fossils of large bears had ever been found at Japanese archaeological sites, so these suspicions were quickly dismissed. It was not until the early 21st century, with advances in DNA testing technology, that the truth finally came to light. A research team led by Professor Jin Suga of the University of Tokyo reanalyzed the bone samples using modern equipment and also applied 3D scanning methods for morphological comparison. The result was a complete surprise. It turned out that the Ushikawa man was not a human at all, but actually a prehistoric brown bear. All the previous imaginings of a unique prehistoric Japanese human turned out to be nothing more than a bear. This story not only caused a stir in the scientific community, but also served as a profound lesson in caution and humility when it comes to archaeological discovery. At the time of the find, Japanese scientists lacked much experience in identifying bear bones and did not have access to advanced analytical equipment. They relied mainly on visual observation, combined with a strong desire to find the true ancestor of the Japanese people. In the end, history showed that sometimes a single mistake in identification can lead to decades of misunderstanding in both textbooks and society's perception. Number 23. The Headless Men, Blemius. Within the pages of ancient books, one can find the image of a headless man standing motionless. His body is powerfully built, with unusually broad and tall shoulders. But what truly draws attention is the fact that his face is not where it should be, upon his neck like an ordinary person. Instead, his deep-set eyes and expressionless features appear right in the middle of his chest. This man is not just an ordinary figure. He represents a strange race known as the Blemmyes headless beings who were once believed to live in the unexplored corners of the world. For more than 2,000 years, the legend of the Blemmyes has lingered in historical records and in the imagination of mankind. Historians believe the earliest accounts of the Blemmyes appeared during the time of Herodotus, the famous Greek historian who lived in the 5th century BC. In his writings, Herodotus described headless people living in the remote eastern lands of Libya. Later, in the Roman era, geographers like Pomponius Mela and Pliny the Elder expanded on the story. They described the Blemmyes as having faces on their chests, said to inhabit somewhere in the regions of Ethiopia or Nubia. By the Middle Ages, the image of the Blemmyes became even more familiar in the minds of Europeans. The Hereford Mappa Mundi, a world map drawn in 1300, placed them deep within the mysterious continent of Africa. Other manuscripts, like the Livre des Merveilles, illustrated the Blemmyes in vivid detail, short, muscular, and completely headless. But as European expeditions expanded, the supposed location of the Blemmyes shifted as well. In 1436, the Venetian mapmaker Andrea Bianco placed the Blemmyes in India. By the early 16th century, the Ottoman admiral Piri Reis marked the figure of a headless man near the region of Brazil. In 1596, the English explorer Sir Walter Raleigh, during his quest for the fabled city of gold El Dorado, recorded that he believed headless men still wandered in South America. Raleigh himself never saw them, but he claimed that every native he met insisted the Blemmyes were real. Even the famous writer Shakespeare mentioned men whose heads do grow beneath their shoulders, in plays like Othello and The Tempest. So why has the image of these headless men survived through so many centuries? Some researchers believe it may have started when desert warriors, bending low behind their shields, gave the distant impression that they were headless. Another theory suggests that indigenous people wearing head-covering garments caused European explorers to be mistaken. There are even comparisons between the posture of the bonobo chimpanzee and the old drawings of the Blemmyes. The Blemmyes were not just monsters in stories. They became symbols of the unknown, reflections of fear and wonder at the vast world lying beyond the borders of civilization. Number 24. A complex and polytheistic religion. For the Sumerians, the world was not simply governed by natural laws, but depended entirely on the will of the gods they worshipped. They believed that every rainstorm, every good or bad harvest, every long drought or sudden flood, all were decided by the gods. and no one could predict the future without listening for messages from the supernatural world. That belief drove the Sumerians to build massive ziggurat temples rising high in the heart of their cities, each tiered step reaching upward to the sky, as if in a desperate plea, linking humanity with the divine. Inside these temples, the priests served as essential intermediaries between people and the gods. They were chosen and trained through a strict process to ensure every ritual was performed with absolute precision from start to finish, because even a single mistake could anger the gods and bring disaster upon the entire city-state. Offerings laid on the altars were not just food and fine wine. Sometimes they included rare animals, and in especially important cases, even human lives. But what's fascinating is that each city-state had its own unique patron god. Enlil, the god of wind and supreme authority, was the symbol of Nippur, while Enki, famed for wisdom and creativity, was worshipped in Eridu. Yet, these gods were never imagined as existing in isolation. The Sumerians always saw them as a community, much like their own society. Their myths were not just explanations for natural phenomena. They helped the Sumerians feel a sense of kinship with their gods, recognizing that the deities, too, could grow angry, could love, could suffer loss, and had to struggle to keep their place just like any Sumerian citizen. That's why religious ceremonies and festivals weren't just about asking for luck. They became major communal events. The Akitu festival, held at the start of the new year, was the clearest example. The king would take on the role of a god, reenacting legendary battles to reinforce the cosmic order, while priests sang traditional hymns, recited prayers, and led processions through city streets amid the cheers of the crowd. Everyone contributed offerings, hand-prepared from the first ripe fruits of the season to cakes, wine, and treasured goods saved up by each family during the year. Not every ritual was a happy occasion, though. In certain moments, the Sumerians believed that only the greatest sacrifices would satisfy the gods. When burying kings or nobles, they were willing to send loyal servants to the afterlife to serve their masters forever. While these human sacrifices were rare and reserved for only the most significant occasions, they reflected just how seriously and faithfully the Sumerians treated their religion. And what's remarkable is that even through centuries of intercity rivalries, the Sumerians maintained a unified religious system, thanks to a clear hierarchy among the major and minor gods. Yet managing hundreds of deities, remembering every name, role, and preferred offering was no easy feat for the priests, because even a small error, such as offering the wrong gift, could be considered an insult to the gods. The city-states also competed fiercely to prove the superiority of their patron gods. Uruk wanted Inanna to be honored above Enlil of Nippur, sparking endless debates among priestly factions. Still, the Sumerians showed remarkable creativity in resolving these conflicts, folding lesser gods into the family trees of the greater ones, weaving a flexible yet unified web of divine relationships that maintained order and stability in their complex belief system. If there's one thing that continues to puzzle modern scholars, it's why the Sumerians invested so much energy into building such a sophisticated religious system far beyond anything else in their time. Perhaps, in a land as unpredictable as Mesopotamia, where floods, drought, disease, and war were constant threats, believing in the protection of powerful gods gave people a sense of safety and helped hold their society together as everyone worked toward the common goal of pleasing the supernatural forces that ruled their world. Number 25. Vajra, the mythical thunderbolt weapon. Among the sacred symbols of the East, few objects are as steeped in legend and deep meaning as the Vajra. The Vajra is not just a finely crafted work of art, it's a key that unlocks stories transcending the boundaries of space, time, and culture, stretching from the soaring temples of Tibet to ancient legends across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. According to Hindu mythology, there was an age when darkness engulfed the world. Indra, the king of the gods, found himself facing powerful demons who could drain all light and water from the earth, turning it into a barren, hopeless wasteland. Indra pleaded for help from Vishnu, and thanks to the divine hands of the celestial blacksmith, he was given an unrivaled weapon, the Vajra. With the Vajra in hand, Indra defeated the demons, tearing through the darkness with blazing bolts of lightning and restoring life and light to all beings. From that moment, the Vajra became a symbol of divine authority and absolute power. But the story of the Vajra doesn't end with conquest and violence. As Buddhism emerged and spread across Asia, the meaning of the Vajra was transformed in a remarkable way. According to Buddhist teachings, it was the Buddha himself who took the thunderbolt scepter, closed its prongs together, and changed it from a weapon of destruction into a symbol of wisdom, compassion, and everlasting reconciliation. From then on, the Vajra was no longer a tool of war, but a sacred object in prayer rituals, helping people overcome both external and inner obstacles on their journey to ultimate enlightenment. Whenever a Tibetan monk holds a Vajra, they believe they are grasping a spirit of unyielding courage and clarity, one that no adversity in life can shake. The influence of the Vajra extends far beyond India or Tibet. Many cultures around the world have similar legends of a thunderbolt scepter or mysterious weapon capable of shattering the darkness. Stories from Northern Europe, South America, and even China all mention a kind of weapon or sacred relic with the power to awaken life and stand against destructive forces. This shows that the Vajra is not merely a product of imagination, but a cross-cultural symbol connecting millions of people with the universal desire to overcome adversity and transcend their own limits. Today, the Vajra still appears in religious ceremonies, in ancient statues, and in the meditations of all those who yearn for indestructible spiritual strength. No longer a symbol of war, the Vajra has become a guiding light for anyone walking through the darkness of life, a reminder that any challenge can be overcome if we hold fast to faith, courage, and the will to seek enlightenment within our own souls. Number 26. Pharaoh versus the river, King Pharaoh and the legend of the Nile. Among the strangest legends of ancient Egypt, there is one story that always stands out: the tale of King Pharaoh and his confrontation with the Nile River. This story was recorded by the historian Herodotus, who spent years studying and writing about the ancient civilizations he encountered. Even though many modern scholars believe Pharaoh was only a legendary figure, his story is still often retold to illustrate how the ancient Egyptians viewed the power of humans in the face of nature. The story begins during a great flood season. The Nile River has always been the lifeblood of Egypt. It brings fresh water, fertile silt, and is the essential factor that makes crops grow. But the Nile could also be a threat whenever its waters rose too high. One year, the floods caused the fields to disappear underwater, turning homes and daily life upside down for the people. King Pharaoh felt powerless before the raging river. In his anger and despair, he decided to do something no one had ever dared to do. King Pharaoh stood before the rising river, holding a large spear. He threw the spear into the water, as if he could force the Nile to obey his will through his own power. This act brought him nothing but disaster. As the spear hit the water, the river suddenly splashed up and injured King Pharaoh's eyes. He was instantly blinded. From that moment on, King Pharaoh lived in darkness for 10 long years. The best healers were summoned to the palace, but no one could find a cure for the king's eyes. His despair only grew deeper as every remedy failed. After 10 years, a prophet appeared. He told the king there was only one way to restore his sight. The king had to wash his eyes with the urine of a woman who was completely faithful to her husband. This condition may sound strange now, but in ancient times, such things were not uncommon. King Pharaoh had no other choice. He summoned the women of the kingdom to the palace. One by one, each woman had to undergo this bizarre test, including his own queen. But the result was always the same. The king's eyes showed no sign of healing. Only when a mysterious woman came forward did the king begin to see the light again. However, King Pharaoh did not stop at curing himself. When he discovered that so many other women, even his queen, had failed the test, he became furious and ordered all those women to be burned alive. It was a brutal end for those who were not so fortunate. After this ordeal, King Pharaoh erected a large stone pillar in the city of Heliopolis to commemorate this strange event in his life. According to some ancient records, this pillar was later taken to Europe by the Romans. Many modern historians believe that King Pharaoh was a figure woven together from many different legends. Some say that this story reflects the ancient Egyptian belief in the power of nature and the limits of human authority. Number 27. The first people in Connecticut. Some discoveries happened purely by chance. but end up completely changing the way we see the history of the land we live on. That is exactly what happened in Connecticut, where what seemed like an ordinary bridge construction project sent archaeologists back in time more than 12,000 years. In 2019, as workers were building a new bridge across the Farmington River, they accidentally uncovered strange stone fragments buried deep in ancient soil. When the archaeological team arrived to investigate, they found not just a few scattered artifacts, but a large site once a resting place for the very first Paleo-Indians. What lay beneath the ground in Connecticut turned out to be evidence of one of the oldest ancient communities in the eastern United States. Archaeologists unearthed more than 15,000 artifacts, including worked stone tools and traces of ancient campfires. Among them were also earth pits and the remains of temporary posts, indicating that this place was once a shelter or a stopover for our ancestors as they migrated and hunted over thousands of years. The discovery in Connecticut not only revealed the early presence of humans in the region, but also opened the door to new research on the lives, customs, and survival skills of ancient Native Americans. Previously, very few Paleo-Indian artifacts had ever been found in this area, and many scientists doubted whether ancient people had truly arrived in New England so early. Now, the answer is clearer than ever. This is not just an achievement of archaeological science, but also a reminder of the value hidden beneath modern construction sites, where every layer of earth that is dug up may hold a distant fragment of human memory. Today, Connecticut is known not just for its brilliant autumn forests, but also as one of the places that shaped the first steps of ancient Americans in New England. Number 28. The origins of the Hyksos, foreigners who ruled Egypt. For centuries, history books have often described the Hyksos as brutal invaders who conquered and ruled the land of Egypt by force. However, recent archaeological discoveries and modern research have gradually shed light on the true origins of this people, revealing a story far more complex than the old legends we have long believed. Modern scientists have carried out a groundbreaking study at Tel el-Dabba, the ancient capital of the Hyksos in the Nile Delta. Here, they collected and analyzed the teeth of 75 skeletons, representing many generations of people who once lived in this area. By examining the ratios of strontium isotopes, researchers discovered that most of those buried at Tel el-Dabba were not born in Egypt. They came from various regions of the Near East, such as what is now the Levant. What is especially interesting is that the migration of the Hyksos did not happen all at once, nor was it a massive wave of invasion as many have imagined. Instead, scientists found that these foreigners arrived in Egypt in small groups, gradually integrating into the local society over many generations. They started families, took part in economic and trade activities, and over time became an essential part of the native community. As years passed, some Hyksos families, thanks to their wealth, networks, and organizational skills, rose to positions of leadership and ultimately took power, founding the Hyksos dynasty in Egypt around the 17th century BC. This discovery not only changes how we view the past of ancient Egypt, but also shows that history is always more diverse and complicated than what is usually told. The Hyksos people who began as ordinary immigrants became the leaders of a flourishing civilization through many years of adaptation and integration. This process clearly reflects the ability to adapt, the openness, and the constant changes that shaped Egyptian society in ancient times. Number 29. The history of uranium mining and the alien conspiracy theory. If the Grand Canyon is famous for its ancient caves, legends of giants, and lost civilizations, there is another layer of history less well known, but even more mysterious that adds to the canyon's allure. This is the story of uranium mines hidden deep within the red rock, along with strange theories involving extraterrestrials. As early as the 1950s, the Grand Canyon became a focal point for uranium mining in America. Orphan Mine, one of the most renowned uranium mines, sits less than 2 miles from Grand Canyon Village and operated for decades in full swing. Then there is Canyon Mine, a modern uranium site that is still active to this day. Beneath layers of ancient rock, uranium lies concealed within natural formations known as breccia pipes, vertical columns of fractured stone formed by geologic upheaval. Mining crews have dug deep into the earth to extract this rare mineral, pressing on despite growing concerns about radioactive contamination spreading to groundwater, springs, and the fragile surrounding ecosystem. But the story of uranium here goes beyond the boundaries of science and environmental issues. Even as experts struggle with the challenges of pollution, within the community of mystery enthusiasts and conspiracy theorists, another theory has been quietly gaining traction. They believe the Grand Canyon is not just a resource for humans, but was once a strategic mine for extraterrestrials. According to these theories, thousands of years ago, a race from the stars secretly landed in the canyon and extracted uranium to serve technologies and energies beyond modern human comprehension. Some even point to ancient legends of lost civilizations, strange archaeological sites, and unexplained celestial phenomena in the skies over the American Southwest as possible clues linking the Grand Canyon to these uninvited visitors from beyond Earth. In particular, the theory draws strength from satellite images that appear to show mysterious cracks and entrances on the canyon's cliffs, features some claim are remnants of alien technology left behind. Of course, to this day, there is no solid evidence of extraterrestrials at the Grand Canyon or proof that they ever mined uranium here. Yet it is precisely this unsolved mystery alongside the canyon's rich history and unique geology that fuels the imagination. The Grand Canyon is not only a natural wonder, but also a destination for those seeking answers to some of humanity's greatest questions about both our past and our future. Number 30. Wall murals and aliens. Truth or imagination? Ancient Egypt has long been famous for countless mysteries that captivate both scientists and the general public, from colossal pyramids to eternal mummies. But in recent years, researchers and archaeology enthusiasts have turned their attention to the strange murals found inside ancient temples and tombs. One of the most famous cases involves carvings at the ancient temple of Abydos, located about 450 kilometers south of Cairo. Built during the reign of Pharaoh Seti I and his son, this temple preserves many murals created more than 3,000 years ago. What puzzles researchers and visitors alike are the unusual images carved into these stone panels, most notably a series of symbols and shapes that look strikingly similar to modern helicopters and submarines. When these strange images first came to public attention in the late 20th century, many people were convinced that this was clear evidence ancient Egyptian civilization had once contacted some kind of extraterrestrial life. According to this theory, these visitors brought advanced technology and helped humans construct those magnificent architectural wonders. However, traditional Egyptologists offer different explanations. They argue that these unusual images are simply the result of overlapping carvings created over generations of pharaohs. According to this view, new inscriptions were carved on top of old ones, creating confusing shapes that happen to resemble helicopters, airplanes, and spacecraft. But Abydos is not the only place where such mysteries appear. At the famous Temple of Hathor in Dendera, another mural has sparked just as much controversy. This artwork depicts what looks like giant light bulbs, each containing a glowing, coiled, snake-shaped filament. Supporters of the ancient alien hypothesis claim this is evidence that the Egyptians possessed a form of advanced lighting technology, one supposedly given to them by beings from another world. Remarkably, when modern engineers recreated the design to the exact proportions depicted in the mural, they discovered that these ancient light bulbs from Dendera could actually work if provided with the proper electric source. This finding only strengthened arguments that the Egyptians may have received help from extraterrestrial beings. Not only that, but some other murals in the tombs of the Valley of the Kings show images of mysterious creatures unlike any known humans. These figures do not match the traditional art style of ancient Egypt, and further fuel the belief that they might be realistic depictions of beings that the Egyptians once encountered. Even more striking, a number of independent researchers have spent decades searching for more evidence of contact between the Egyptians and extraterrestrials. They point out that the development of ancient Egyptian civilization was unusually rapid, especially in fields like mathematics, astronomy, and architecture. For example, the pyramids were built with such extraordinary precision that it seems almost unbelievable given the technological level of that era. Nevertheless, despite the heated debates and ongoing controversy, mainstream science still cannot fully accept the idea that aliens ever intervened in ancient Egyptian civilization, For these scholars, all the strange images are either misunderstandings or intentional religious symbols created by the ancients to carry hidden meanings. Regardless of the debates, these mysterious murals and carvings continue to fascinate and fire the imagination of millions of people around the world. Perhaps it is the very lack of a definitive, convincing explanation that gives these ancient Egyptian mysteries their endless allure. Number 31. The Alien Doorway, Entrance of the Extraterrestrials. Perhaps one of the most intriguing stories about the Grand Canyon in recent years comes not from ancient legend, but from modern technology itself. In 2022, explorers and conspiracy theorists around the world began sharing a surprising discovery made possible by Google Earth. According to these reports, nestled among the sheer cliffs and wild, untouched lands of the Grand Canyon, satellite images revealed a gigantic stone doorway hidden in a remote area, one almost entirely untouched by human footsteps. What astonished people wasn't just the size or the inaccessible location of this stone doorway, but its shape, a design that instantly evoked images of ancient Egyptian temple gates. With its squared, vertical structure and sloping roof on either side, it looked as though it had been carved with careful precision by a giant hand in some distant age. For those who believe in the existence of extraterrestrials, this was no ordinary natural phenomenon or random quirk of geology. They argue that this structure could be a secret entrance, leading to an underground base, perhaps one where aliens are still active, quietly watching over the human world. The story grew even more captivating when people noticed just how closely this doorway resembles the monumental temple gates along the banks of the Nile, once belonging to pharaohs and the great civilization of ancient Egypt. This has fueled a strange but fascinating hypothesis. Could there be a connection between the world's ancient civilizations and intelligent beings from the distant cosmos? Was the Grand Canyon once a stopover, or even a secret outpost, for visitors from the stars, and are their traces still hidden somewhere among the canyon's towering red rocks, waiting to be found after millions of years? Of course, all of this remains in the realm of speculation and imagination. But in the world of the Grand Canyon, the appearance of an alien doorway has only added to the mystery, making this land all the more alluring to generations of curious souls across the globe. Number 32. The mysterious cave in Ecuador, Cave of the Tayos. When it comes to the ancient mysteries of South America, few places can rival the strange allure and fascination of the Cave of the Tayos, hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest of Ecuador. Concealed beneath dense foliage, this cave has become the center of many expeditions and countless stories, stirring the curiosity of both archaeologists and adventurers alike. The story begins in the 1960s, when a Hungarian explorer named Juan Moric claimed to have discovered something extraordinary underground. Moric believed he had found a vast underground labyrinth stretching for hundreds of miles beneath the jungle. But that was not all. Moric said he had personally seen golden artifacts, walls covered in strange inscriptions, mysterious ancient machines, and most incredible of all, an entire library made of metal books. The idea of a metal library beneath the earth sounded like something straight out of science fiction, but at the time, it caused a sensation and widespread speculation. The story became even more famous when Erich von Däniken, author of Chariots of the Gods, and the man who popularized the ancient astronaut theory, mentioned the Cave of the Tayos in his 1973 book, Gold of the Gods. Von Däniken suggested that the mysterious treasures and unusual artifacts inside the cave could be evidence of extraterrestrial civilizations from the past. Curiosity peaked in 1976, when a large international expedition, including many scientists and especially astronaut Neil Armstrong, set out to enter the cave. This journey was equipped with the most advanced technology of its time, with the hope of uncovering the secrets of an underground city, the metal library, and legendary treasures. However, just like many other searches for the unknown, no concrete evidence of a metal book library or ancient machines, as Moric had described, was ever found. All the explorers and scientists could document were deep stone corridors, strange carved passageways, and traces showing that people had used the cave at least 2,500 years ago. Some corridors in the cave are believed to have been intricately crafted, very different from ordinary natural formations, but there were no signs of any super-advanced civilization or evidence of aliens inside. Today, the Cave of the Tayos remains one of the greatest mysteries of the Amazon. This cave continues to attract researchers as well as those who love adventure and exploration. And like many other ancient mysteries, the Cave of the Tayos reminds us that some secrets of the past may never be uncovered. Number 33. The Legend of the Giant City and the Mysterious Buddha Statue of the Grand Canyon. If there's ever been a story about the Grand Canyon that's both haunting and unforgettable, it would have to be the legend of the City of Giants and the mysterious Buddha statue, a tale forever linked with the name Kincaid, a figure woven into many of the canyon's strangest legends. In 1909, after a famous expedition through Marble Canyon, Kincaid claimed to have discovered an underground city hidden deep within the Grand Canyon, a place unlike any archaeological site ever found in North America. Kincaid recounted that inside this vast network of caves, he encountered mummies over 9 feet tall, nearly 3 meters high, a staggering sight that conjured visions of ancient giants once walking the earth. These mummies were tightly wrapped in thick, dark cloth and lay along stone corridors like ancient sentinels, sleeping through thousands of years. But that was only the beginning. Kincaid described a trove of astonishing and diverse artifacts. Among the objects he saw with his own eyes were copper weapons, exquisitely carved jars, stones engraved with strange symbols, and decorations from a variety of cultures. What baffled him most, however, was a statue sitting in the place of honor in the main hall. According to Kincaid, it depicted a deity seated cross-legged, holding lotus flowers in both hands, a striking resemblance to the image of the Buddha so revered in the East. The very thought that a statue with such unmistakable religious ties to the other side of the world might be found in the heart of the Grand Canyon only made the story more difficult to believe. Legend has it that after Kincaid contacted the Smithsonian Institution to report his shocking discovery, scientists and archaeologists from the institute immediately came to investigate. But from that point on, all information seemed to vanish from public view. Conspiracy theorists claim that the Smithsonian secretly removed all artifacts from the cave, sealed the entrance, and erased every trace of the City of Giants and the mysterious Buddha statue. According to these theories, the silence was fueled by fears that history would have to be rewritten, or by anxieties about the possibility that ancient people had achieved far more than we now imagine. Whatever the truth may be, the legend of the City of Giants and the Buddha statue continues to live on in the imaginations of countless people. It remains an essential part of the Grand Canyon's rich and mysterious tapestry, a place where the line between fact and fantasy, past and present, is forever blurred by the mist of the unexplained. Number 34. The mysterious handbag motif in Sumerian art and other ancient civilizations. If there is any symbol that seems to transcend the boundaries of space and time, connecting ancient cultures across continents, it would surely be the mysterious handbag motif carved into ancient reliefs. When you look closely at the old works of art from Sumer in Mesopotamia, it's easy to spot images of gods standing tall and majestic on ancient stone platforms, always holding a small handbag with a rounded, crescent-shaped handle and a perfectly rectangular body. What's especially intriguing is that this handbag motif doesn't just show up in Sumer. It can also be found on temple walls in Egypt, in Greek sculptures, and even on relics from faraway ancient civilizations in Central America and Turkey. No matter the country or the period, the image of that handbag carries a magnetic appeal, and it has left researchers puzzled as to what it truly represents. Over the years, many theories have been proposed to explain the repeated appearance of this symbol. Some believe that the handbag is a sign of ultimate power, held only by gods or leaders at the very top of society. Other scholars focus on the detailed designs etched into the body of the bag, suggesting that it represents sacred knowledge or cosmic secrets that only the gods were allowed to possess. Looking from a more practical angle, some think that the handbag was actually a container for seeds or food, symbolizing the nurturing and life-sustaining gifts that the gods bestowed upon humanity. But the motif is not limited to religion alone. The handbag also appears as a protective item in rituals, a vessel for holding sacred objects or talismans meant to ward off evil spirits. The variety in how the handbag is portrayed and where it appears in art shows that this symbol carried a meaning far beyond just one civilization. When ancient craftsmen carved these handbags onto their reliefs, perhaps they were unconsciously expressing a longing to connect humanity with the divine or a desire to safeguard knowledge and pass it down to future generations. Number 35. The mysterious crystal sword of Spain. When archaeologists search for traces of ancient civilizations, they often come across countless tools and weapons made of flint, scattered deep beneath the layers of earth. These are tangible reminders of a time when humanity depended on rudimentary skills and pure survival instinct. Yet, in a quiet corner of southern Spain, researchers recently uncovered a mystery that defies everything they thought they knew. Instead of just flint, they unearthed a cache of weapons and artifacts made from volcanic rock crystal, a material that is exceedingly rare in this region. From 2007 to 2010, a team of scientists from the University of Granada, the University of Seville, and the Spanish National Research Council embarked on a lengthy excavation at the Montelerio Tholos megalithic tomb. This ancient tomb stretches over 43 meters in length and is divided into 8 interconnected chambers. A long corridor leads directly to a central room with a diameter of over 4.5 meters. According to the scientists, this tomb has existed since at least 3000 BC, meaning it has witnessed more than 5,000 years of human history and change. As they dug deeper, the archaeologists discovered a total of 25 sets of human remains scattered throughout the burial complex. Among them was one man and many women, who, according to forensic analysis, died from poisoning. Most striking was the way the women's skeletons were arranged in a circle, seated around the remains of a single individual, likely a leader or figure of great importance. This arrangement conjures the image of a solemn collective ritual and raises questions about its true significance in ancient society. Beside these skeletal remains, the team found 19 arrowheads, each crafted entirely from crystal, placed together in carefully organized groups, as if arranged for some sacred purpose. These arrowheads show no signs of ever being used in battle. Instead, they appear to have served as ceremonial objects, perhaps offerings meant to invoke strength or the protection of the gods. In a separate, deeper chamber within the tomb, archaeologists uncovered a crystal sword with an ivory hilt and sheath, nearly 22 centimeters in length. This sword is not only a rare and precious artifact, but also undeniable proof of the remarkable craftsmanship achieved by the people of that era. What makes this discovery even more astonishing is the fact that there are no natural sources of crystal anywhere near Montelerio. The ancient people would have had to bring the material from afar, overcoming great distances and numerous hardships just to possess volcanic crystal. This alone suggests that these weapons and objects were extraordinarily valuable, reserved exclusively for the elite members of society. Their creation demanded advanced technical skills, knowledge handed down over generations, and reflects a network of trade that was far more developed than previously thought possible for the time. The crystal sword and its accompanying artifacts are not merely symbols of power, they are closely tied to rituals and beliefs about the connection between the living, their ancestors, and unseen spiritual forces. Looking at how the remains and objects were arranged, one can sense the deep reverence these ancient people held for the spiritual world. They believed that power, protection, and strength all derived from sacred ceremonies involving such unique items. To this day, the Montelerio Tholos tomb and its crystal sword remain an enduring mystery for the field of archaeology. These findings not only enrich our understanding of the past, but also open new questions about the technical abilities, worldview, and spiritual life of the ancient people of the Iberian Peninsula. Number 36. The disappearance of the Sarah Joe. On a February morning in 1979, as the sun rose over the horizon, 5 close friends set out from the island of Maui on a small boat named the Sarah Joe. The vessel was just 17 feet long, equipped with a weak outboard motor, barely suitable for gliding across calm bays, let alone braving the wide and often unforgiving Pacific Ocean. That morning, the sea was so tranquil that everyone left on shore remembered the sense of safety and peace it brought. Because of that calm, the group didn't bother checking the weather report. Instead, they simply watched the horizon and trusted their own instincts. After all, years of living alongside the water had taught them to believe they could handle whatever the sea might throw their way. But the ocean has never been a place of certainty. Barely 2 hours after they left the shore, a violent storm swept in without warning. Fierce winds began to howl, and waves rose suddenly, towering more than 40 feet high. Even larger vessels struggled to make it back to port in the chaos. By that afternoon, not a single trace remained of the Sarah Joe or the friends who had sailed on her. Worry quickly swept through the community. A massive search operation was launched, with airplanes and boats scouring more than 70,000 square miles of ocean for 5 straight days, but not a single clue was found. Despite this, the families and friends of the missing men refused to let go of hope. They expanded the search to nearby islands, scanning every stretch of sand and every coral reef, clinging to the faintest possibility that a miracle might happen. The search stretched on for 3 more weeks, only to end in heartbreak and helplessness as the ocean kept its secrets sealed tight. After weeks of anxious waiting and empty hands, the painful truth became unavoidable. The Sarah Joe and her 5 passengers had vanished forever into the vast embrace of the sea. Their story faded into a quiet ache within the community, recalled only in hushed conversations on still afternoons or in the sorrowful eyes of those left behind. Nearly a decade slipped by, and it seemed as if the fate of the little boat had been erased from memory by the relentless tide until a strange twist of fate occurred. In 1988, during a scientific survey on Taongi Island in the distant Marshall Islands, a research team stumbled across the wreck of the Sarah Joe lying forlorn on a stretch of white sand. The hull remained intact, but the engine had disappeared without a trace. Not far from where the boat had come to rest, the researchers found a simple stone grave marked by a small cross fashioned from driftwood. Inside the grave was a human jawbone. When the jaw was sent for forensic analysis, it was identified as belonging to Scott Mormon, the youngest of the missing friends. Yet the greatest mystery remained. Who had buried him on this remote, deserted island, more than 2,000 miles from Hawaii? Why had the engine vanished? And how had a tiny boat like the Sarah Joe managed to cross the immense Pacific, eventually washing up on such a distant shore? To this day, the disappearance of the Sarah Joe stands as a mystery with no true resolution, a haunting reminder for anyone who loves the sea of how fragile and unpredictable fate can be in the vastness of the ocean. Number 37, the 20,000-year mystery of the labyrinth beneath the pyramids. For thousands of years, Egypt's pyramids have stood as symbols of the mysterious power of ancient civilization. But few people know that, buried deep beneath the scorching sands near these great pyramids, there is said to be a labyrinth so ancient that its origins stretch back more than 20,000 years. Stories of the labyrinth beneath the pyramids have long puzzled archaeologists, hinting at secrets that reach far beyond human imagination. The tale of this mysterious labyrinth begins around 450 BC, when the renowned Greek historian Herodotus visited Egypt. He described a colossal underground structure near Lake Moiris, about 100 kilometers south of modern Cairo. Herodotus called it the labyrinth, a maze so complex that even the most experienced local guides dared not venture too far inside, for fear they would never find their way out. According to Herodotus's account, this labyrinth contained over 3,000 rooms, twisting corridors, and spiral tunnels spread across many subterranean levels. Each room was filled with strange bas-reliefs, ancient writings, and mysterious stone statues depicting creatures and symbols that defied explanation. The Greek historian even claimed that this mysterious structure was grander and more impressive than the famous Pyramid of Giza itself. But the legend of the labyrinth did not only appear in Herodotus's writings. Centuries later, the Greek geographer Strabo also mentioned a gigantic subterranean maze in Egypt, calling it the most astonishing structure he had ever seen. Yet after the Roman era, nearly all records of this mysterious labyrinth vanished from history. For many centuries afterward, the labyrinth was seen more as legend than historical fact. Modern archaeologists and historians doubted its reality, as no clear traces of it had been uncovered during excavations. But in the 19th and 20th centuries, archaeological surveys near Lake Moiris began to reveal unusual signs, hinting at the existence of a vast underground structure buried deep beneath the sand. By 2008, an international research team conducted a ground-penetrating radar scan near the Hawara Pyramid complex. The initial results stunned the archaeological community. They detected clear evidence of an enormous subterranean structure with countless corridors, rooms, and passageways arranged in a way that was both complex and incredibly precise. This discovery instantly revived what had once seemed to be mere legend. What was even more astonishing was that, when scientists compared the data from these surveys, they realized the underground structure could be far older than the pyramids themselves, its age estimated at nearly 20,000 years. Who could have constructed such a massive and intricate monument at a time when humanity was not thought to possess the technical ability for such feats? Several theories have been proposed to explain this mystery. Some scholars believe the labyrinth may have been the creation of an advanced civilization that existed and disappeared long before the Egypt we know ever rose. According to this view, the labyrinth was an enormous library, preserving ancient knowledge, perhaps even secrets about the origins and destiny of humanity. Other researchers have proposed even more controversial ideas, suggesting the labyrinth may be the legacy of extraterrestrial visitors who came to Earth thousands of years ago, leaving behind this maze as a kind of base or information vault for future humans. While this theory has yet to gain wide acceptance in the scientific community, it remains a topic of fascination and curiosity for many. Today, despite these remarkable discoveries, access to the labyrinth remains extremely difficult. The structure lies buried beneath dozens of meters of sand, and there are significant legal and administrative obstacles imposed by the Egyptian authorities. All of this only adds to the allure of the 20,000-year-old labyrinth beneath the pyramids, making it one of the greatest and most captivating mysteries for archaeologists and the public worldwide. Number 38. The world's oldest female shaman. Mystery beneath the soil of Şanlıurfa, Turkey. Amid the wind-swept, dusty hills of Şanlıurfa in southeastern Turkey, archaeologists have opened a rare doorway into the spiritual world of our distant ancestors. In the ancient burial site of Çamlıköyük, they uncovered a strange tomb, lying deep beneath layers of earth and stone that had hidden it for thousands of years. What made this discovery so remarkable was the skeleton of a young woman, just 25 to 30 years old at the time of her death, but buried as someone of extraordinary status within her community. She did not rest alone. Surrounding her were the bones of wild animals, bird wings, bird beaks, and, most striking of all, the skull of an ancient aurochs, a mighty and formidable wild bull that once ruled the prehistoric plains. Nearby, bird bones, the legs of martens, and fragments of artifacts made from wild creatures were carefully arranged around her body, as if sending a sacred message to the world beyond. What astonished the scientists was not just the richness of the grave goods, but the deeper meaning behind this burial. For generations, it was widely believed that spiritual leaders, shamans, or those who connected humans with the gods in prehistoric times, were almost always men. But here, before our eyes, was living evidence of a female shaman, the oldest woman ever found with this role, who lived nearly 12,000 years ago. The grave offerings, especially the aurochs bones, a symbol of strength and power, along with the various parts of birds and animals, showed that this woman once served as a bridge to the spirit world, guiding the tribe's most important rituals. Perhaps she alone could communicate with the gods or spirit animals, or perhaps she was the one who held the secrets of healing and passed down sacred knowledge from the other side. This discovery has shaken old assumptions about the place of women in ancient society. The woman of Şanlıurfa was not just an exceptional individual, but a symbol of equality, power, and wisdom, held by women from the very beginnings of human history. It is a reminder that history does not always match what we find written in the books. Today, as we look back on that quiet tomb on the Turkish steppe, there is an undeniable sense of awe for the silent strength of this female shaman, a mysterious and inspiring figure whose presence left an indelible mark on the story of humanity's evolution and growth. Number 39. The mysterious disappearance of the Sumerians. When we look back over the more than 3,000 years of brilliant Sumerian history in Mesopotamia, we find a story that is both magnificent and full of sobering questions about the fragility of every civilization on this earth. The Sumerians created a society made up of independent city-states, each with its own towering temples and its own system of government. They invented cuneiform writing to record knowledge and important transactions, ushering in the era of written history. For centuries, the Sumerians mastered the art of harnessing river water for agriculture, building sturdy irrigation systems, and developing crafts and commerce that brought wealth to their land. Guided by their kings, their civilization rose from one success to another, earning the respect and admiration of neighboring peoples. Yet, as any society reaches its peak, the seeds of decline can quietly take root, often without anyone at the time realizing it. At the start of the second millennium BC, overuse of natural resources left once fertile land barren. Water sources became polluted, the environment changed, and agriculture suffered collapse after collapse. Crops failed year after year, and the population was faced with hunger and scarcity. As the fields grew bare, canals dried up, and droughts followed one after another, the people no longer enjoyed the security and stability their ancestors had known. At the same time, the Sumerian city-states grew increasingly divided. They fought constant battles over land, water, and economic advantages, shattering the unity that once held them together. This endless competition made the Sumerians vulnerable to outside powers, and it was at this moment that neighboring empires like Akkad, Babylon, and Assyria began to rise, launching conquests to expand their domains. On top of all this, the Sumerians faced countless other challenges, from plagues to natural disasters. Each flood or outbreak of disease further destabilized society, making daily life more fragile and uncertain. All these factors combined to produce a long, slow wave of decline, which stretched over generations until that once glorious civilization finally faded from the historical record. Perhaps this is a warning for every civilization, that if we fail to maintain a balance between progress and preserving nature, between harmony and competition, no matter how great we become, we will always be subject to the harsh and unforgiving cycles of history and time. Number 40. The disappearance of Cambyses' army, the eternal mystery of the Sahara Desert. In 524 BC, Cambyses II, emperor of the mighty Persian Empire, sent an army of more than 50,000 soldiers into the Egyptian desert on a mission to conquer the legendary Siwa oasis. This oasis was home to the Temple of Amun, regarded by the ancient Egyptians as one of their most sacred sites, and a place where kings sought prophecies about their fate. However, as soon as the army ventured deep into the harsh desert, they vanished without a trace. For thousands of years afterward, the fate of Cambyses' army has remained one of the most perplexing historical mysteries humanity has ever known. The story begins with Cambyses II, who ascended the Persian throne in 530 BC, succeeding his father, Cyrus the Great. Driven by a desire to expand his empire, Cambyses swiftly conquered Egypt, becoming the first foreign king to rule this mysterious land. But not satisfied with his victories, Cambyses set his sights on the distant Siwa oasis, deep in Egypt's western desert. Siwa was renowned as the site of the Temple of Amun, one of the most important deities of ancient Egypt. Cambyses wanted to destroy this temple to assert his ultimate power over both the gods and the Egyptian people. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, Cambyses dispatched a massive army, fully supplied with food and water, to march across the unforgiving desert. At first, the army progressed steadily, but midway through their journey, they faced increasingly severe conditions. In a desolate stretch of the desert, a gigantic sandstorm suddenly struck and engulfed the entire army. When the storm passed, all 50,000 men had vanished, leaving behind no trace whatsoever. Immediately after this mysterious event, Cambyses sent out several search parties to look for his missing army, but every effort proved futile. Not a single piece of armor or any evidence of the soldiers was ever found among the vast desert sands. The disappearance of such a large force quickly became one of the strangest legends of the ancient world, baffling even the most seasoned historians. For more than 2,000 years, archaeologists and historians have put forward numerous theories to explain this event. One of the most widely accepted ideas is that the army was completely buried by the sandstorm. With the immense power of Sahara's sandstorms, the entire force may have been entombed under dozens of meters of sand, making any search for remains almost impossible. Some other experts suggest that Cambyses' army did not simply fall victim to a natural disaster. According to these theories, the army may have been betrayed or misled by local Egyptian guides, who purposely led them into a deadly stretch of desert where they quickly became exhausted and succumbed to the elements. Another intriguing theory involves the supernatural and ancient curses. Many ancient Egyptians believed that the god Amun became enraged at Cambyses' plan to violate his sacred temple. To protect the holy land of Siwa, Amun summoned the sandstorm and wiped out the entire foreign army. In recent years, with the help of advanced satellite surveying technology, archaeologists have begun new searches in hopes of shedding light on this millennia-old enigma. Initial findings have revealed unusual features beneath the sands of the Sahara, including metallic objects and structures resembling ancient military equipment. However, actual excavation remains extremely difficult due to the harsh desert conditions, and so the mystery of Cambyses' lost army continues unsolved. To this day, the disappearance of Cambyses' army stands as one of history's greatest unanswered questions. Were they truly swallowed by the forces of nature, or did they meet an even stranger fate? Number 41. The mystery of Sumerian astronomical knowledge. If there is one thing that truly set the Sumerians apart from so many other ancient civilizations, it was their unique way of seeing the universe and humanity's place within it. From their earliest days, the Sumerians developed a rich and vivid cosmology, a worldview where the gods not only ruled over every natural phenomenon, but also determined the very laws that governed the heavens and the earth. They believed that high above, the sky god Anu presided, watching over all the movements of the stars. Below Anu was Enlil, who controlled the air and the land, bringing favorable weather for the crops and holding the fate of the whole community in his hands. Alongside them was the goddess Inanna, embodying love, beauty, and the fierce power of war. But their beliefs didn't stop at worship or the building of grand temples in honor of the gods. The Sumerians created myths that were both profound and poetic, using them to explain the origins of the world. Works like the Enuma Elish and the story of Inanna's descent into the underworld are not only evidence of their boundless imagination, but also reveal their deep reflections on life and death, and on the endless cycle between order and chaos in the universe. Behind every legend lies a layer of meaning that researchers are still trying to unravel today. For the Sumerians, the gods were not distant beings somewhere far above. They were present in every rainstorm, in every planting season, and in every change in nature. They believed that all the laws of the cosmos, from the rising and setting of the sun to the endless paths of the stars, were shaped by divine hand. This belief led the Sumerians to build what may have been the very first astronomical observation system in history. Watching the sky was not just an act of faith, but played a crucial role in tracking time, planning harvests, and carrying out important rituals in society. Even though much about Sumerian astronomy remains a mystery today, no one can deny the profound legacy they left behind, a legacy where humanity, the gods, and the order of the universe are forever intertwined in the human imagination. Number 42. The time machine of ancient Egypt. Prophecy or knowledge beyond its era. Thousands of years ago, the ancient Egyptian civilization thrived along the banks of the Nile. The Egyptians were not only famous for their magnificent pyramids and the mysteries of their mummies, but also for their profound knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and religion. They carefully recorded everything on papyrus or carved it into stone, from mystical rituals to practical predictions about the seasons. Yet, there are ancient texts that send chills down the spine of modern researchers. Many passages seem to have foretold great upheavals in the future with uncanny accuracy. One of the most remarkable documents is the Ipuwer papyrus, discovered in Saqqara and dated to around 1800 to 1600 BC. Its content describes a time of chaos, natural disasters, and social upheaval. Notably, Ipuwer wrote, "The Nile is in blood, people drink water and shrink from it, the land trembles, the rich become poor." Some believe this was a record of an actual catastrophe, but many scholars question whether it might have been a prophecy about events yet to come. What is especially strange is that the descriptions in the Ipuwer papyrus closely resemble those found in the Book of Exodus in the Bible. Some researchers believe the document was not only recording past events, but also warning about natural disaster cycles that could repeat. Egyptologist David Rohl even connected these disasters to the eruption of the Thera volcano on Santorini around 1600 BC, which triggered tsunamis and widespread climate changes. If this is true, the Egyptians were not only recording disasters but also grasping the sequence of long-term effects. But how could they have known such events would occur? Did they rely on astronomical observations? Or did they possess some special kind of knowledge? Another mysterious text is the Prophecy of Neferti, dating to around 1991 to 1786 BC. This tale tells of a sage named Neferti, who predicted the fall of Egypt to foreign invaders and the coming of a king who would save the nation. Remarkably, this prophecy was written before Egypt was invaded by the Hyksos and before Pharaoh Ahmose drove them out, even though these events took place centuries later. Many believe the Egyptians could see future upheavals, either through astronomical observation or religious intuition. In reality, the ancient Egyptians were famous for their study of the night sky. They built a 365-day calendar based on the appearance of the star Sirius, allowing them to predict the Nile's annual flooding with astonishing accuracy. Researchers like Robert Bauval have even noticed that the pyramids at Giza and the Sphinx seem aligned with the Orion constellation, as if marking or predicting cosmic events. Some suggest the Egyptians' deep understanding of nature and the universe was so advanced, it was almost as if they possessed a time machine. However, there is no evidence of an actual device like those described in science fiction. Other theories suggest that the Egyptians' prophetic knowledge may have originated from external cultures. Their contacts with ancient Mesopotamia brought astrological techniques, which sometimes appeared in Egyptian rituals. Still, most Egyptian texts lean toward religious explanations and a focus on harmony with the gods. Not every one of their predictions came true either. For example, the prophecy of Hermopolis claimed Egypt would prosper forever, yet the nation ultimately declined under Greek and Roman rule. Did the Egyptians truly possess knowledge ahead of their time, or were they simply master observers? The papyri and stone inscriptions of Egypt remain as a challenge to our modern imagination. Number 43. The mystery of Sumerian seals. Art, religion, and strange symbols. When we look back at the surviving artifacts of Sumerian civilization, it's impossible not to be struck by the small stone or metal seals that have become a special bridge between the distant past and the present day. For the Sumerians, these seals were not just practical tools for administration, they played a vital role in religious rituals where every carved image carried the weight of a prayer sent to the gods. With each delicate motif, each careful line etched onto their tiny surfaces, the Sumerians left behind more than stories of mythology and gods who ruled the universe. They embedded signs and images whose meanings still elude modern understanding. What makes Sumerian seals so fascinating and mysterious is the sheer number of symbols that continue to spark debate among researchers and history enthusiasts alike. Many seals feature tiny dots, spiral shapes, or objects with forms entirely unlike the traditional symbols we associate with the Sumerians. Sometimes you can even find images that seem to resemble planets or floating objects in the sky. Some bold scholars have even linked these to UFOs or unidentified flying phenomena mentioned in modern times. While such theories remain controversial, no one can deny that the recurring appearance of these enigmatic symbols adds to the air of mystery and stirs our desire to understand the ancient Sumerians' knowledge of the cosmos. Today, archaeologists continue the painstaking work of deciphering every tiny inscription, every peculiar image left on these ancient seals, hoping to unlock the secrets at the heart of Sumerian civilization. Yet the deeper they go, the more they realize that much of the true meaning remains just out of reach. The Sumerian seals are like magical pieces of a vast historical puzzle, where each symbol might hold an entire story about the world of the ancients. Number 44. The Egyptian Tower of Light, an illuminating mystery from the past. Throughout history, the civilization of ancient Egypt has continually amazed the modern world with its timeless achievements. The Egyptians not only built the Great Pyramid of Giza with near-perfect precision, but also invented the 365-day calendar and developed a detailed system of record-keeping on papyrus. Yet, there is one small but persistent mystery inside their tombs and temples that has baffled archaeologists for generations. In places where sunlight could never reach, like the Temple of Hathor at Dendera or the burial chambers in the Valley of the Kings, the Egyptians were somehow able to create intricate carvings and reliefs of unbelievable quality. How could they have accomplished this without the use of fire for illumination? Many believe that the Egyptians may have possessed an advanced lighting technology far ahead of their time. One of the most famous clues is the so-called Dendera light bulb relief at the Temple of Hathor, discovered in the 19th century. The image depicts a long object resembling a giant glass tube with a filament inside, held up by a serpent deity named Harsomptus. On either side are figures that seem to be operating or manipulating the device, and a cable connects the object to a mysterious stone box. For many observers, the scene is strikingly similar to a modern electric light bulb. The bold hypothesis suggests that the ancient Egyptians may have used electricity to illuminate underground spaces. However, most traditional archaeologists reject this idea. They argue that the relief is merely a religious symbol, reflecting mythology about the birth of the sun god from a lotus flower, not a depiction of real technology. Some scholars offer another explanation, proposing that the Egyptians used a system of polished copper mirrors to channel sunlight deep into tombs. These mirrors could create an artificial tower of light to guide natural light into the depths of the burial chambers. However, this theory cannot explain how the Egyptians could work at night or in tombs with no access to outside light. Others have suggested they used oil lamps made from vegetable oil or animal fat with special wicks designed to burn cleanly without soot. Yet, modern experiments show that no matter how refined, oil lamps always leave some traces of soot, something never found in Egyptian monuments. There are also theories related to natural electrical energy. The Great Pyramid of Giza, located near the geographic center of the Earth, was built from a special type of nummulitic limestone that can conduct electricity at high frequencies. Some believe the pyramid could once have functioned as a giant light generator, creating charged particles similar to the aurora borealis. They even link this idea to Nikola Tesla's wireless lighting experiments in the 20th century, speculating that the Egyptians may have known how to harness geomagnetic energy. In addition, legends of the Tower of Light appear in several ancient texts. Some papyri describe rituals in temples where light burst forth in the darkness without the use of fire. Yet, these accounts are highly symbolic, making verification even more challenging. Some people have even gone so far as to suggest that this knowledge came from an extraterrestrial civilization, though most scientists affirm that the ingenuity and creativity of the Egyptians were entirely their own. Despite all the theories, the mystery of Egypt's Tower of Light remains unsolved. Did the Egyptians truly invent a lighting technology far beyond their era, or were they simply masters at harnessing and directing natural light? What do you think about this enigma? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Number 45. Did the ancient Egyptians communicate with aliens? For thousands of years, the Great Pyramid of Giza has towered over the desert, standing as one of the most iconic symbols of ancient Egyptian civilization. Yet, this very pyramid has fueled one of the most controversial theories in history. Did the ancient Egyptians really build the pyramids on their own, or did they receive help from an extraterrestrial civilization? The origins of this theory come from the many unexplained mysteries surrounding the construction of the pyramids. First, there are the massive stone blocks, weighing up to 50 tons each, which were transported from the Aswan quarries nearly 900 kilometers away to the construction site at Giza. Then there's the question of how the Egyptians were able to lift and precisely position these stones at heights nearing 150 meters, apparently using only simple, primitive tools. These challenges have sparked the idea that aliens may have taught the Egyptians advanced building techniques. Supporters of this theory also point to the fact that the Great Pyramid is aligned with the Orion constellation, something they say would have required astronomical knowledge far beyond that era. Many also highlight other strange phenomena associated with the pyramids. Reliefs in the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, which depict objects resembling light bulbs, are believed by some to be evidence of ancient electrical technology. Other theories suggest that aliens may have used geomagnetic energy or flying devices to transport the stones, explaining the near-perfect alignment of the blocks. The ancient astronaut theory even links the pyramids of Giza with other mysterious monuments like Stonehenge, claiming that our ancestors may have mistaken extraterrestrials for gods. Some even go as far as to suggest that the pyramids were energy-gathering stations for beings from beyond Earth. However, the majority of modern scientists and archaeologists reject this hypothesis. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed many details about how the Egyptians actually built the pyramids. The Diary of Mira, for example, documents the transportation of limestone from Tura to Giza using boats along the Nile and an extensive canal system. Archaeologists have also found evidence of wooden sledges, rope, and a method of wetting the sand to reduce friction. Notably, the pyramid builders were not slaves, but paid workers. They lived in settlements near the construction sites and were well cared for in terms of food and medical needs. Egyptologists, such as Zahi Hawass, emphasize that the pyramids of Giza are the result of a tightly organized society and the development of local construction techniques. Still, the theory of alien involvement continues to capture the imagination of the public, fueled by television programs, internet articles, and the views of celebrities. These factors ensure that the mystery of the Great Pyramid of Giza will likely continue to fascinate the world for many centuries to come. Number 46. The Great Ziggurat of Ur. When we talk about the wonders of the ancient world, the Ziggurat of Ur stands out as a symbol that has inspired awe and reflection for generations, showcasing the remarkable skill of the Sumerians. Thousands of years ago, the Sumerians built this massive stepped structure in the heart of the city of Ur, which was once the bustling center of all Mesopotamia. This monumental pyramid wasn't the work of a single king. Construction began under King Ur-Nammu of the 3rd dynasty of Ur and was later completed by his son, King Shulgi. This alone shows that it was a grand project, spanning many years and demanding tremendous effort as well as the far-sighted vision of Sumerian rulers. The entire structure of the ziggurat was designed with an inner core made of mud bricks, surrounded by layers of kyaline-fired bricks that have proven to be remarkably durable. That's why, after so many centuries, its mark on this land still hasn't faded. Many archaeologists believe that this method of construction not only helped the building withstand the intense heat, but also turned the ziggurat into a powerful symbol of both authority and faith for the people of Ur. For the Sumerians, the ziggurat of Ur was far more than just a grand building. It was the heart of the whole city, the focal point of all major activities. It served as both the administrative and religious center, a place of worship for the moon god Nana, the patron deity of Ur, known as the one who lit up the night sky. At the top of the ziggurat, the Sumerians built a small temple dedicated exclusively to Nana, and only those chosen could serve there. The area surrounding the ziggurat included grain storage facilities, living quarters for priests, and other supporting structures. All of this reflects how central the ziggurat was to every aspect of Sumerian life, both spiritual and material. Some scholars have even suggested that, beyond its religious role, the ziggurat may have served as an astronomical observatory, or as a miniature representation of the cosmic mountain, a place where heaven and earth meet in the Sumerian imagination. To this day, despite years of effort by scientists to restore and study the site, the true purpose of the ziggurat of Ur remains an open question. Only the lower layers have survived intact, while the upper parts have long been lost to time and natural disaster. Yet the fascination and mystery of the ziggurat continue to inspire anyone who loves history to look deeper into this brilliant but still enigmatic era of ancient Sumerian civilization. Number 47. The miniature airplane models, Abydos flying objects, of ancient Egypt. At the end of the 19th century, as archaeologists excavated an ancient temple at Abydos, they came across a collection of mysterious small gold artifacts. At first glance, these objects seemed unremarkable except for their fine craftsmanship. But on closer inspection, observers were astonished. They looked exactly like modern airplanes, complete with tail fins, streamlined bodies, and especially a pair of wings shaped with true aerodynamic form. What puzzled scientists the most was that these models were made over 2,000 years ago, at a time when humans had not even dreamed of flight. These enigmatic artifacts were quickly named Abydos flying objects, or the miniature airplane models of Abydos. From the moment they were revealed to the public, these tiny relics sparked heated debates about the possible existence of advanced aviation technology in ancient Egypt, a technology that history has never recorded. The Abydos airplane models were found in the Temple of Seti I, a site famous for its intricate carvings and the mysterious stories surrounding legendary pharaohs. In total, more than 10 similar objects have been discovered in Egypt and South America, but the most notable examples are those from Abydos. The most prominent model was found in 1898. It measures about 15 centimeters long, with 2 wide wings and a vertical tail that resembles the design of a modern jet aircraft. What especially drew attention in the scientific community was that these artifacts clearly did not resemble any known bird or insect species. Some scientists initially believed these were just religious symbols, stylized from birds. However, when aeronautical engineers began to conduct detailed analyses, they identified odd features that simple symbolic explanations could not fully account for. In 1994, German aeronautics researcher Dr. Algundine Boom conducted wind tunnel tests on the Abydos models to study their aerodynamics. The results surprised many. The model not only had a stable structure, but could also glide in a balanced way if built to the right scale and fitted with essential details such as a tail stabilizer or flaps. Boom declared that the design of these models was clearly the result of a very sophisticated understanding of aerodynamics. Since then, the Abydos models have become a subject of intense controversy. Some archaeologists adamantly reject the idea that these artifacts were actually prototypes for airplanes. They argue that, although ancient Egyptian civilization was great, it could not possibly have had the technical capability to develop complex aviation technology. These archaeologists suggest the artifacts were simply decorative or ceremonial items, but artistically stylized. Yet, there are still many who believe in the bold hypothesis that the Abydos models are clear evidence that ancient humans once possessed knowledge of technology far beyond what we recognize today. Some have gone even further, suggesting that the Abydos airplane models prove contact between ancient Egyptians and extraterrestrial civilizations or supernatural entities that once visited our planet in the distant past. Even more remarkably, similar artifacts have been found in other ancient cultures, such as in Colombia and South America, golden models with perfectly aerodynamic shapes. The appearance of such similar objects at two locations thousands of miles apart with no known historical connection only deepens the mystery surrounding these ancient airplane models. Nevertheless, to this day, no single hypothesis has been able to convince everyone. The Abydos airplane models remain one of the greatest archaeological mysteries of ancient Egypt. Did the ancient Egyptians truly possess advanced aviation technology that was lost to time? Or are these simply the coincidental product of human imagination? And are there more secrets still buried deep underground, waiting to be uncovered and shed new light on this strange story? Number 48. The Sumerian King List. If you want to understand how the Sumerians viewed power and authority, the Sumerian King List is one document that will surely make you pause and think. This list is more than just a simple record, it's like a mysterious chronicle where the lines between myth and reality are always intertwined. The most famous original copy of this list was discovered in the city of Nippur, a major religious center of Sumer, though other versions have turned up in various places, with the best-known one now housed at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. The list records the names and reigns of kings stretching from the pre-dynastic era, even before the Great Flood, all the way to the 14th century BC. What stands out most are the dynasties that supposedly lasted for tens of thousands of years, numbers so staggering that anyone reading them has to wonder whether they reflect real history or are just legendary inventions of the Sumerians. The earliest kings, like Alulim or Alalngar, are described as ruling for unimaginably long periods, while later names such as Gilgamesh have left behind genuine traces in the historical record. It's this blend of myth and reality that has made the King List an endless source of fascination for researchers. To this day, people still debate which parts are true history and which are symbolic messages the Sumerians intended for later generations. Some scholars believe the King List was used to legitimize and strengthen the authority of the ruling dynasty. Others think those enormous numbers were meant to express eternity and immortality, a reflection of humanity's longing to reach the realm of the gods. Another interesting point is that if you look closely, you'll notice striking parallels between the Sumerian King List and stories from the Bible, especially those about the Great Flood. Before the Great Deluge, the kings lived for extraordinarily long lifespans. After the flood, everything returned to a familiar order, with human lifespans greatly reduced. Number 49, the true age of the Sphinx, a timeless challenge. On the west bank of the Nile, the Sphinx has stood guard over the desert for thousands of years. Carved from a single massive block of limestone, stretching more than 73 meters long and rising over 20 meters high, the Sphinx remains the largest monolithic statue still in existence. The ancient Egyptians saw it as the embodiment of the sun god, and many scholars believe its face bears the likeness of Pharaoh Khafre, the ruler who built the second largest pyramid at Giza. According to traditional archaeological records, the Sphinx was created sometime between 2558 and 2532 BC, but the mystery surrounding the Sphinx's true age has never faded. Most theories suggest the statue was carved directly from the limestone quarry near the pyramids, which also supplied material for the monumental tombs. One legend claims that while inspecting the site, Pharaoh Khafre discovered a large, unused stone block and ordered it shaped into a lion with his own face to leave his personal mark on the Giza plateau. However, not everyone agrees with this story. In 2004, French Egyptologist Vasile Dobrev offered a different opinion. He believes that it was actually Djedefre who commissioned the Sphinx to honor his father, Khufu, and to connect the great king with the sun god. Debate over the Sphinx's real age erupted when scientists began to focus on the statue's weathered surface. In the early 1990s, Boston University geologist Robert Schoch made headlines by asserting that the deep vertical grooves running along the body were caused by heavy rainfall, not by desert winds and sand. According to Schoch, this type of erosion could only have occurred when Egypt's climate was much wetter between 7,000 and more than 10,000 years ago. Many other hydrologists have supported the idea that these ancient rainmarks suggest a much earlier date than the traditional theories allow. The story grew even more complex with the arrival of modern technology. In the 1980s, a Japanese archaeological team led by Professor Sakuji Yoshimura used ultrasound to examine the structure of the Sphinx and the Khufu pyramid. Their results indicated that the stones of the Sphinx had been worked earlier than those used in the pyramid, suggesting the statue may have been carved centuries before. Legends and ancient inscriptions add to the unresolved mysteries. The dream stele of Pharaoh Thutmose IV, erected around 1400 BC between the Sphinx's paws, records how the king dreamt that the statue pleaded with him to clear away the sand covering its body, promising him the throne in return. Some theories go even further, proposing that the Sphinx was the work of an extraterrestrial civilization, as its form and engineering seem to surpass the abilities of the ancients. To this day, the enigma of the Sphinx's true age remains unsolved. Was it built by Khafre, or by a civilization even older? Are the weathered grooves the remnants of prehistoric rains, or simply the result of wind and time? No single answer has satisfied everyone. Number 50, the Mummy of Bashiri, the enigmatic art of Egyptian mummification. Deep within the Valley of the Kings at Luxor, the Mummy of Bashiri stands as one of the most intriguing discoveries made by archaeologist Howard Carter, even before his famous excavation of Tutankhamun's tomb. Bashiri was found in a small tomb, wrapped in intricately layered linen that has remained almost perfectly preserved after thousands of years. Scientists believe this is the mummy of a man about 167 meters tall, who lived during the Ptolemaic period, a time when the art of Egyptian mummification had reached its peak. Yet, the true identity of Bashiri remains a mystery. What sets Bashiri apart is the innovative technique used in his mummification. The linen strips were wrapped around his face and body in complex patterns, resembling miniature layers of a pyramid. Each strip was carefully placed, making the mummy not just a preserved body, but a true work of art. Every detail suggests Bashiri once held a high position in society, perhaps as an official or a wealthy noble. However, unwrapping the linen to seek definitive information is impossible, as each layer is so delicate that even a slight mistake could destroy this rare mummification technique. To learn more about Bashiri without causing harm to the mummy, scientists have turned to modern technology such as CT scans. The images revealed that the body was prepared with astonishing precision. The internal organs were removed through a small incision on the left side, but the heart was left intact. The brain was extracted using a special hook inserted through the nose, and then the entire body was packed with natron to dehydrate it over 40 days. Once the body had dried, it was coated with resin to increase flexibility, then carefully wrapped in hundreds of meters of linen and adorned with numerous protective amulets to safeguard the soul's journey to the afterlife. Even today, despite all our technological advances, the mystery of Bashiri remains unsolved. The mummy of Bashiri is not just the remains of a single person, but a mirror reflecting the art, religion, and creative spirit of ancient Egypt. As technology continues to advance, scientists hope that one day the secrets hidden beneath those fragile linen layers will finally be revealed. Number 51. The role of women and Queen Khubaba. When people think of ancient societies, women are often pictured as quietly standing in the background. But if you pause to look closely at the history of Sumer and truly consider the role of women in this land, you'll see a very different picture from that of many other civilizations of the time. In Sumer, women weren't just confined to work within the family. They could own property, conduct their own business, and even initiate divorce if life didn't turn out as they'd hoped. While these rights depended on social status and the particular era, this still set Sumer apart. It was a society where mothers, wives, and women merchants had a voice of their own, with laws that clearly outlined their rights and protections, something most other major civilizations of that age did not provide. But women's roles didn't end with personal autonomy or economic participation. Sumerian women could rise to hold positions of significant influence in religion and culture. Enheduanna is a striking example. She was the daughter of Sargon of Akkad, and also served as the high priestess of Ur, remembered in history as humanity's first known author, leaving behind poems and prayers dedicated to the goddess Inanna. Enheduanna's writings were more than religious texts. They reflected her thoughts, hopes, and faith as a woman. She became a model for Sumerian women who used knowledge and faith to claim their place in ancient society. But to truly appreciate the depth of women's roles in Sumer, you have to know about Queen Khubaba. A name that may sound unfamiliar, but stands as a testament to breakthrough and the idea that ability and determination can matter more than bloodline or birth. Khubaba is the only woman who appears in the Sumerian king list, and she wasn't the daughter of any king. Through her own abilities, she steadily rose to become the ruler of Kish around 2500 BC. Records say she didn't just reign for a short time, but founded a dynasty that lasted a century. She left an indelible mark on Sumerian history, becoming a symbol of female strength in an age when men held nearly all the power. Still, even with outstanding figures like Enheduanna or Khubaba, the daily lives of most Sumerian women, especially those from the lower classes, remain a mystery to modern researchers, as surviving records mainly reflect the perspectives of the elite or those in special positions within society. Number 52. The Curse of King Tutankhamun. On the 4th of November, 1922, archaeologist Howard Carter and his team discovered the steps leading down to the tomb of King Tutankhamun in the Valley of the Kings. Tutankhamun was a young pharaoh of Egypt's 18th dynasty, ascending the throne at just 9 years old and passing away at 18. Inside his tomb, archaeologists found over 5,000 priceless artifacts, from gold to rare jewelry. This discovery was quickly hailed as one of the greatest achievements in the history of archaeology. However, the excitement didn't last long. The initial joy was soon replaced by a series of strange events. Rumors began to spread of a curse inscribed on clay tablets in the tomb, warning, "Death will cut off the wings of whoever disturbs the pharaoh's rest." Even though researchers could not find conclusive evidence of this inscription, the rumors alone were enough to sow fear about a deadly curse. Just a few months after the tomb was opened, the first tragedy struck. George Herbert, the main financial backer of the excavation, died suddenly in Cairo on the 5th of April, 1923. He suffered an infection from a mosquito bite on his cheek, which led to blood poisoning and pneumonia. Strangely, at the very moment of his death, all of Cairo lost electricity for several minutes, and his loyal dog in England began howling before dying soon after. 2 years later, when scientists examined King Tutankhamun's mummy, they found a red mark on the pharaoh's left cheek, matching the fatal bite on Herbert's face. This coincidence became a hot topic in the press and sparked the legend of the Curse of Tutankhamun. Even the famous writer Arthur Conan Doyle suggested that spirits summoned by Egyptian priests had caused Herbert's death. Afterward, more misfortunes followed. George J. Gould, an American financier who had visited the tomb, died of a sudden fever just days after his visit. Egyptologist Hugh Evelyn White, who was present during the excavation, hanged himself in 1924, leaving behind a bloody message saying he had been cursed forever. Arthur Mace, a member of Carter's team, fell into a coma and died mysteriously that same year. By 1929, More than 20 people connected to the tomb had died from various causes. In 1972, Dr. Gamal Merez publicly mocked the curse and died under mysterious circumstances after supervising the transfer of Tutankhamun's artifacts to London. These successive deaths only deepened public belief that the tomb was truly cursed to punish anyone who dared to disturb it. Scientists, however, have offered more practical explanations. In 2024, researchers suggested that radioactive substances such as uranium, as well as toxic chemicals present in the tomb's sealed environment, could have contributed to cancer, similar to what Howard Carter experienced. Another theory points to the deadly mold Aspergillus flavus, which grows on food and mummies inside tombs and can cause severe lung diseases if inhaled. This mold was also discovered in the tomb of King Casimir IV in Poland in 1973, after several members of the excavation team died mysteriously. Bags of bread and raw grains left in Tutankhamun's tomb may have nurtured the spores for thousands of years, infecting people like Carnarvon or Mace upon contact. Despite these scientific explanations, some cases remain hard to fully understand. Bruce Ingham, who received a mummy-shaped paperweight from Carter, lost 2 houses in a row to fire and flood. The curse of King Tutankhamun, whatever its origin, remains an enduring symbol of mystery. The story not only honors the greatness of the young pharaoh, but also reminds us that history still holds many secrets we have yet to unravel. Number 53. The legendary city of Aratta. When you look back at the old Sumerian epic stories, you will find a name that is both familiar and mysterious: Aratta, a city once described as the greatest rival of Uruk, and a land that has sparked curiosity for generations. In the Epic of Enmerkar and in the legends about Lugalbanda, Aratta appears as a city so wealthy that even the great kings of Uruk were cautious of it, a place where everything from treasures to fine crafts was said to be far above the standards of that time. Ancient lines describe Aratta as a rich land, where rare metals, shining gems, and intricate works of art were created by the most skillful hands, enough to make any neighboring civilization look on with admiration. Although the epics left the image of Aratta in people's minds, up to now, the real location of this city is still a big question that archaeologists and historians have not been able to fully answer. Some believe Aratta was on the Iranian plateau, where high mountains and mineral mines are hidden underground. Others suggest the city might have been in the Caucasus, or even farther in Armenia or in the Indus Valley, where ancient civilizations once thrived. Each theory opens up a new direction for historians. But so far, none of the searches have brought back clear evidence to confirm where Aratta truly was on the map of the ancient world. Because no real traces have ever been found, some scholars believe Aratta might just be a legendary city created by the Sumerians. Maybe Aratta was never a real place, but a symbol for an endless dream of progress, wealth, and boundless creativity. Whether it was legend or reality, Aratta is still a lasting inspiration for those who love to discover. And every time that name is mentioned, we are reminded that some mysteries from the past are still waiting for us to keep searching. Number 54. The passion for beer. If you ever had the chance to travel back in time to ancient Sumer, you would quickly realize that beer was not just a simple drink, but an essential part of the cultural and spiritual life of the people there. On ancient seals carved with great care, you can see images of people sitting together around large jars, drinking beer through long straws, clear evidence of a tradition that was closely tied to Sumerian life for thousands of years. During festivals and family gatherings, beer was always present as something that brought people together and connected each individual to the larger community. The Sumerians did not just invent the way to brew beer, they honored this craft so much that they even had a special goddess for it, Ninkasi, who was seen as the mother of brewing. Songs praising Ninkasi were composed and passed down from generation to generation, not only describing the process of making beer, but also reminding everyone of the sacredness and deep meaning this drink carried. The Sumerian recipe was truly unique, as they used barley to create a thick, rich beer that was so dense people had to use straws to enjoy it. But the value of Sumerian beer went far beyond taste. It reached into every part of spiritual life. For the Sumerians, drinking beer was a way for people to share happiness, to take away the fatigue after long days of hard work, and to give everyone a chance to feel closer as a community. Beer was not just a way to quench thirst or add nutrition, it was seen as a gift from the gods, a symbol of happiness and fulfillment that everyone wished to have. The tradition of drinking beer lasted for thousands of years, leaving a deep mark not only on Sumerian culture, but also spreading to other civilizations. Number 55, the treasure of the Great Pyramid of Giza, an unsolved mystery. According to historian Herodotus, the ancient Egyptians always buried their pharaohs with gold, pearls, and precious jewels to ensure wealth in the afterlife. Royal tombs typically contained amulets, gilded pottery, and countless valuable artifacts, just as the tomb of Tutankhamun stunned the world with over 5,000 objects. Because of Khufu's status, many have long believed that the treasure in his tomb must have surpassed that of any other pharaoh. Yet, in reality, archaeologists have never found a mummy or treasure inside the Great Pyramid, a stark contrast to the discoveries in other royal tombs. A common theory holds that everything was looted by grave robbers not long after Khufu's burial. As early as the Old Kingdom, tomb robbing was a serious problem. Egyptologist David Silverman notes that thieves often targeted gold and amulets wrapped around the mummy, even sometimes stealing the pharaoh's body itself. Evidence such as hacked corridors and broken sarcophagi in Khufu's pyramid supports this idea. Still, not everyone is convinced that all the treasure was stolen. In 2013, archaeologist Pierre Tallet discovered the Diary of Mira, a 4,500-year-old papyrus scroll, now called an invaluable treasure. This document, written in hieroglyphs, details the transport of limestone from Tura to Giza under the supervision of the vizier Ankaf. While it doesn't mention gold or jewels, it reveals the tightly organized construction project and has sparked theories that the real treasure might have been hidden elsewhere to avoid theft. Some scholars have even suggested that the ancient Egyptians deliberately sealed the treasure in secret chambers that have yet to be found. Notably, in 2017, the Scan Pyramids project used muon scanning technology and discovered a huge void nearly 30 meters long above the king's chamber. With no known entrance, many wonder whether this cavity could be a hiding place for treasures or important artifacts. Beyond theories of gold and riches, some believe the real treasure of the Great Pyramid is knowledge itself. Many speculate that hidden within the pyramid may be papyrus scrolls holding secrets of astronomy, mathematics, or religious rituals much like the Ipuwer papyrus. Others imagine that secret rooms, such as the Big Void, might contain the legendary Book of Thoth, a mythical text of divine wisdom. However, so far, there is no evidence to support these theories, and most scholars maintain that the Great Pyramid was primarily a tomb, not a library. Legends of treasure in the pyramid are also kept alive by tales of tomb robbers and curses. Some sources mention dangerous traps such as cobras, poisonous hematite powder, or razor-sharp wires meant to guard the treasures. Yet even these hazards couldn't stop determined thieves. By the time of the New Kingdom, the pharaohs were forced to bury their dead in the Valley of the Kings to escape increasingly rampant looting. To this day, the mystery of the treasure of the Great Pyramid of Giza remains unsolved. Did robbers take everything? Or is there still a fortune hidden somewhere in chambers yet to be discovered? Number 56. Knowledge beyond its time. If there is anything that makes modern historians feel both astonished and deeply impressed when they talk about the Sumerian civilization, it is the treasure trove of knowledge the Sumerians left for humanity. Among their most important inventions, the base 60 counting system they created became the foundation for how we measure time today, with 1 hour divided into 60 minutes, 1 minute into 60 seconds, and the circle divided into 360 degrees. Whether you are looking at a clock or reading a map, the imprint of Sumer is quietly present in every number and angle of modern life. The Sumerians did not stop at shaping units of measurement like 12 inches in a foot. They also laid the groundwork for a whole range of measurement systems that great civilizations after them, such as Babylon, would continue to inherit and develop. Thanks to these logical systems, their construction, crop planning, and even social organization became more accurate and efficient, helping Sumerian society grow steadily for many centuries. But if you look at how the Sumerians communicated, you will see just how remarkable they were. The Sumerian language is one of the earliest written languages in the world, and to this day, it has not been shown to connect with any major language group. They invented cuneiform writing, which started as simple signs on clay and slowly developed into a system of more than 700 highly complex symbols. It wasn't just language or mathematics that made the Sumerians stand out. Their achievements in agriculture and irrigation also won admiration from the whole world. In the dry land of Mesopotamia, they built complex canal networks connecting fields and villages, controlling the water from two great rivers to support a large and stable population over many generations. That system was not just a tool for farming, but a clear proof of an organizational and technical level far beyond their time, a foundation that helped Sumerian society become one of the earliest centers of human development. Number 57, the origins of mummification medicine, the mystery of immortality. The mummification techniques of ancient Egypt began around 2600 BC and stand as one of the most astonishing achievements in human history. The Egyptians believed that the body was the vessel of the soul, and preserving it from decay was essential for pharaohs and the elite to live forever in the afterlife. The mummification process typically lasted 70 days. It began with the removal of internal organs, leaving only the heart intact. Priests then dried the body using natron salt, applied precious tree resins to the skin, and carefully wrapped the body in hundreds of meters of linen interwoven with protective amulets between each layer. Yet, what amazes today's scientists most are the medicines the Egyptians used. These substances not only prevented decomposition but also left the mummies fragrant even after thousands of years. In 2023, a study published in Nature analyzed 121 ancient jars found at the Saqqara mummification workshop, revealing the surprising diversity of the medicinal compounds used by the Egyptians. Researchers identified the antiu compound, a blend of cedar oil, juniper oil, and animal fat used to protect the head and body of the mummy from odors. Resins from the Burseraceae tree family, beeswax, and animal fats were employed to soften and preserve the skin. Remarkably, some ingredients had extremely distant origins: elemi resin from Africa, dama resin from Southeast Asia, and pistachio oil from the Eastern Mediterranean. These findings prove that as early as the 7th–6th centuries BC, the Egyptians were engaged in trade routes stretching thousands of kilometers. In 2025, the University of Ljubljana published a study using gas chromatography and electronic nose technology to analyze the scents of 9 mummies at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. The results revealed that most mummies carried woody fragrances. These scents not only helped with preservation but also gave the mummies a pleasant aroma. One of the most controversial discoveries came in the 1990s, when scientists found traces of cocaine and nicotine in the mummy of Henut Tawi. These compounds are found only in tobacco plants native to the Americas, which were unknown in Egypt before Columbus's voyages. This led some to hypothesize that the Egyptians may have had contact with ancient America. However, most scientists believe this may be due to contamination or confusion with native plants containing nicotine. Ancient documents like the Ebers Papyrus offer many clues about Egyptian medical knowledge. This text lists hundreds of medicinal recipes, including frankincense for its antibacterial properties and plant oils for skin protection. Many ingredients were imported along trade routes from the Levant and Southeast Asia, demonstrating that the Egyptians established an extensive supply network. How did the ancient Egyptians combine these medicinal ingredients so effectively? Some scholars think this knowledge was accumulated through generations of experimentation and keen observation of herbal effects on wounds. Archaeologist Muhammad Mujahid, while studying the mummy of Kui in 2019, discovered a type of synthetic resin dating back to the Old Kingdom, showing that Egyptian mummification techniques were advanced very early on. Even today, despite scientific advances, the true origins of the medicines used in mummification remain a major mystery. Did the Egyptians rely solely on practical experience, or did they possess a body of knowledge beyond their time? Mummies that still carry the scent of frankincense and precious woods are not only marvels of preservation, but also gateways to the vast wisdom and secrets of a great civilization still waiting for humanity to uncover all that remains unknown about them. Number 58. An extensive trade network. If you ever thought that a great civilization had to be built on fertile land with plenty of resources, the story of the Sumerians will make you look at things differently. In the sun-drenched land of Mesopotamia, Even though they lacked almost everything from wood to stone or precious metals, the Sumerians managed to create such a vast trade network that historians today are still amazed by their boldness and intelligence. Without forests to get wood for houses, without quarries to build temples, and with no copper or tin mines under their feet, the Sumerians chose to open their doors in every direction, searching for what they needed through dangerous journeys both overland and by sea. In their efforts to expand their trading network, the Sumerians reached Dilmun, a rich land that is now Bahrain, once a major hub for the largest copper shipments in the ancient world, and a meeting place for merchants from all across the Middle East to exchange goods. They also sailed to Oman in search of rare minerals, then crossed deserts to the Indus Valley, where the Harappan civilization once flourished with its great cities and hidden treasures. The Sumerian caravans didn't stop there, they moved northwest toward Anatolia, the land that would later become Turkey, a place rich in tin, silver, and precious stones. They were not afraid to cross the Mediterranean Sea to find cedar wood in Lebanon, the prized material used for the beams of the grandest palaces and the most sacred temples in Sumer. Many records even mention Egypt and Ethiopia as places the Sumerians dreamed of reaching to trade for gold, ivory, spices, and other rare goods. Every time archaeologists find a trace of an ancient trade route or an unusual jar or gemstone turning up far from home, people are once again amazed by the real scale of the trade network the Sumerians built. Even so, to this day, there are still many mysteries about how they managed to organize such large-scale trading expeditions. Number 59. The Amulets of Lamashtu and Pazuzu, Ancient Mesopotamia. In ancient Mesopotamia, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet, belief in gods and supernatural forces was an essential part of daily life. Among the most mysterious figures of that era, none was more terrifying than Lamashtu, a notorious demon who haunted countless families with fear. Lamashtu was described as a creature with a hairy body, a lion-like face, donkey's teeth and ears, long hands, sharp claws, and the fierce legs of a bird of prey. According to legend, Lamashtu preyed on pregnant women and small children, always seeking to harm the most vulnerable in society. To guard against the threat of Lamashtu, the people of ancient Mesopotamia created special protective amulets. Families often hung these amulets above the beds of pregnant women or young children. The amulets were crafted from metal, clay, or stone, and were engraved with images of Lamashtu and magical symbols, with the hope of warding off evil and protecting the family from dangers unseen. For the people of that time, an amulet was not just a decoration but a shield between life and death, between health and sickness. What is especially fascinating is that the back of these amulets always features the image of Pazuzu, another equally famous demon in Mesopotamian mythology. Pazuzu was usually depicted with a human body, the head of a lion or dog, eagle talons, large wings, and a scorpion's tail. Pazuzu was the god of the fierce winds, bringing storms, and sometimes causing drought and disease. Yet in folklore, Pazuzu was known as the sworn enemy of Lamashtu. Because of this, despite his fearsome nature, Pazuzu was invoked as a protective deity who could drive away Lamashtu and save women and children from disaster. On the back of the amulet, Pazuzu's image was often carved prominently, sometimes even depicted overpowering or restraining Lamashtu. Thanks to this belief, many families felt safer during the most challenging times. Over thousands of years, these protective amulets have been preserved in great museums such as the Louvre, standing as proof of both the ancient world's fears and the eternal human desire to protect loved ones from dark forces. Today, when we look at the Lamashtu and Pazuzu amulets, we see not only the traces of a mysterious world, but also a powerful faith in protection and peace, whether that faith was in the gods or simply the hope of people facing life's uncontrollable hardships. Number 60. The Vegetable Lamb of Tartary. There is a strange legend that once captivated explorers and European scholars for centuries. It is the tale of the Vegetable Lamb of Tartary, a creature both animal and plant, familiar yet completely alien to anyone hearing the story for the first time. According to the tale, in the faraway steppes north of the Caspian Sea, lands that old maps marked only with faint ink stains, there was a most peculiar kind of sheep. This sheep did not roam the fields like those in England or America. It had no legs to run or jump, nor did it ever leave its spot. Instead, The vegetable lamb grew straight up from the ground, its body firmly attached to a large root like the trunk of a gourd plant. Its wool was white, soft and thick, looking no different from real sheep's wool that farmers sheared for warm clothing. Yet the whole body of the lamb was fused to the earth, as if it were a part of the plant itself. People said the vegetable lamb could only reach grass within the circle allowed by its stem. When it had eaten all the grass around it, it could not move further. Eventually, with nothing left to sustain it, it would wilt, die, and disappear back into the soil. All that remained was a barren patch where the lamb had once grown, as if it had never existed at all. The story of the vegetable lamb appears in many ancient books under various names. Some called it the vegetable lamb of Tartary, others the Scythian lamb or Barometz. For centuries, scholars debated whether it was a real creature, a wonder of nature, or simply the invention of fanciful storytellers. The origins of this legend may trace back to distant ancient journeys. In the 5th century BC, the famous historian Herodotus wrote that, in India, there were trees bearing fruit with fibers softer than any sheep's wool he had ever known. When these tales reached Europe, they sparked the imagination of many. Later, the botanist Theophrastus, a student of Aristotle, also described unusual plants, and the Greek word milon, meaning both apple and sheep, only added to the confusion. By the Middle Ages, the story became even more fantastical. In John Mandeville's famous 14th century travelogue, he spoke of giant gourds which, when split open, revealed a living lamb inside. Other versions described the lamb growing on a tall stalk, connected by an umbilical-like cord, able to live only as long as the grass around it remained green. The herbalist John Parkinson, in the 17th century, claimed the lamb would only detach from its stem after it had eaten all the grass nearby, and would then die of hunger or be devoured by wolves. During the Renaissance and modern times, many naturalists tried to prove or disprove the vegetable lamb's existence. The philosopher Francis Bacon, in his early 17th century work Silva Silvarum, wrote that he did not believe the legend, but specimens still appeared in England. A cloak said to be woven from vegetable lamb's wool was presented to diplomat Richard Lee, and later preserved at the famous Bodleian Library in Oxford. In 1698, the renowned naturalist Sir Hans Sloane personally examined a vegetable lamb at the Royal Society in London. On close inspection, he found the specimen was really the rootstock of a Chinese fern, with fibers as soft as real sheep's wool. Other botanists, like Engelbert Kaempfer, believed the legend originated from Central Asian and Chinese practices of harvesting wool from unborn lambs, which was the softest and finest. Even with reasonable explanations, the legend of the vegetable lamb never faded. In 1887, the naturalist Henry Lee declared that the true origin of the story was a misunderstanding by Europeans upon first encountering the cotton plant. To someone who had never seen cotton, a plant producing fluffy, white fibers as thick as sheep's wool was truly incredible. Today, as technology allows humans to create strange hybrids, artificial foods, genetically modified crops, the story of the vegetable lamb of Tartary feels closer and more fascinating than ever. Perhaps the line between animal and plant, between fact and legend, has never been as clear-cut as we imagine. And sometimes, it is those very impossibilities that spark the imagination and dreams of countless generations. Number 61. Bab el-Zuwayla Gate and supernatural phenomena in the heart of Cairo. In the heart of Old Cairo, the towering stone gate known as Bab el-Zuwayla stands as a silent witness to centuries of history. Built in 1092 under the Fatimid dynasty, Bab el-Zuwayla is one of the last 3 remaining city gates. Located at the southern edge of the ancient Islamic quarter, it once served as the main entrance for countless caravans, soldiers, and travelers. Its 2 soaring minaret towers and sturdy limestone walls made Bab el-Zuwayla not only a defensive stronghold, but also a symbol of Cairo's power and legacy for nearly 1,000 years. The name Bab el-Zuwayla comes from a Berber tribe that served the Fatimid court. Over the centuries, the gate has witnessed countless bloody events. During periods of unrest, prisoners were often executed and their bodies hung right on the gate. The most chilling episode came in 1517, when the Ottoman Empire conquered Egypt. The heads of 800 Mamluk warriors were severed and displayed on Bab el-Zuwaylah as a grim warning to all would-be rebels. These harrowing memories have fueled legends of lingering spirits haunting the ancient gate. Cairo locals believe that on bright moonlit nights, the shadows of Mamluk warriors can still be seen patrolling around Bab el-Zuwaylah, as if they are guarding the city as they once did. Some say they've heard heavy footsteps or the clang of metal, recalling the sounds of armor and swords. Stories of ghosts, strange noises, and an unshakable feeling of being watched are passed down from generation to generation, adding to Bab el-Zuwaylah's air of mystery. A famous folktale tells of a 19th century gatekeeper who saw a white figure beckoning from atop the minaret. When he climbed up to investigate, no one was there, only a sudden chill that left him shaken. Modern scientists have also tried to explain these phenomena. Some studies suggest that feelings of being watched or hearing odd noises may be caused by infrasound low-frequency sound waves that the human ear cannot hear, but which can induce anxiety, paranoia, or even hallucinations. The unique stone architecture of Bab el-Zuwaylah, combined with strong nighttime winds, could easily create these eerie effects. Another theory proposes that toxic gases or bacteria lingering from ancient corpses trapped within the stone crevices might affect those who come too close, an occurrence also noted in ancient Egyptian tombs. Despite these scientific explanations, the legends around Bab el-Zuwaylah never lose their appeal. Many people believe the gate is actually a spiritual portal, connecting the world of the living and the dead. Modern stories tell of ghostly figures appearing in photographs taken during major festivals or historical anniversaries, or sudden overwhelming sensations that make visitors think of the presence of spirits. The famous psychologist Carl Jung even remarked that supernatural events can be linked to collective mental states, especially in places heavy with historical energy like Bab el-Zuwaylah. Alongside ghostly legends, the gate is also associated with fringe theories about ancient magic or aliens. Some see the complex geometric patterns carved on the gate and speculate that they might contain secret messages from a lost civilization or even from extraterrestrials. However, archaeologists assert that these designs simply reflect the artistic tastes of the Fatimid era, and there's no evidence of UFOs or strange technology at this site. Egyptologist Salima Ikram believes that the supernatural tales and experiences at Bab el-Zuwaylah are actually how ancient people explained what they couldn't understand, much like the stories of mummy curses in Egyptian culture. No matter how many theories or explanations emerge, the mystery of Bab el-Zuwaylah endures. Are the apparitions and strange sounds truly the spirits of Mamluk warriors, or merely products of human imagination and natural forces we still don't fully comprehend? Bab el-Zuwaylah, with its steadfast stone walls, continues to stand in the middle of Cairo as a gateway between past and present, reminding us of the enduring power of history, memory, and mysteries humanity has yet to solve. Number 62. One of the earliest legal systems. The Sumerians understood that they needed a clear set of laws so that everyone could follow the same rules and justice could be applied fairly to all. The appearance of the Code of Ur-Nammu around 2100 BC marked a turning point, a new era in the legal history of humankind, when the very first laws were carefully recorded on clay tablets in cuneiform script and publicly announced by the king, who declared that the highest gods, An and Enlil, had entrusted him with the mission of protecting justice and maintaining order in this world. This code was not just a list of regulations, it also reflected the Sumerians' practical and human perspective on society. The laws paid special attention to protecting the most vulnerable members of society, and they addressed complex civil matters to help society become more stable and sustainable. The Sumerians understood early on that to keep society fair, it had to be organized into different classes, with clear rules for each role. In their legal system, the king and nobles were at the top, free people in the middle, and slaves at the bottom. Penalties and compensation were set differently for each group, making sure that everyone understood their rights and responsibilities and recognized their place within the overall order. Even in economic matters, the Sumerians set out specific numbers like 1/5 for money or 1/3 for grain, showing that they already understood the role of law in protecting fairness in commercial transactions. Building a written legal system in an age when most people could not read or write was a huge challenge. The Sumerians not only had to invent cuneiform writing to record every rule, they also had to train a group of scribes who could read and write, making sure the laws would be preserved for a long time and not changed at the whim of a powerful few. The laws were inscribed on clay tablets and placed in busy public spaces like temples or city squares, but in reality, not everyone could read and understand these laws by themselves. That is why priests and judges played an especially important role. They were the ones who explained the laws to the people, protected the objectivity of the rules, and made sure that no one could abuse their power or twist the original meaning of the law. It can be said that the constant rivalry among city-states, along with the pressure of a growing economy based on farming, trade, and exchange, gave the Sumerians a strong motivation to create public and consistent rules to resolve disputes. Religion also strengthened the role of law, because the Sumerians believed that laws were commands from the gods delivered to the king, making every article sacred and helping society maintain stability for a long time, without needing the brutal punishments used by some later civilizations. The greatest legacy left by the Code of Ur-Nammu is not just found on those ancient clay tablets, but in its lasting influence, serving as the foundation for later famous codes such as the Code of Eshnunna, the Code of Hammurabi, and many legal rules in Jewish civilization. Looking back at history, what still surprises researchers is the way the Sumerians built such a strict, humane, and influential legal system, even though they had no modern technology, no specialized law schools, and no complex administrative networks like the civilizations that came after them. Number 63. Sutton Hoo, the legendary ship burial of the Anglo-Saxons. In 1938, across the rolling fields of Suffolk, England, Edith Pretty was a widowed woman living with her son in an old mansion. On her estate stood two large, solitary burial mounds that had long been woven into local folklore. People in the area often whispered that ancient treasure might be hidden beneath the earth, or that these mounds were the resting places of powerful figures from centuries past. Over the years, such legends kindled a growing curiosity in Edith. Unable to resist her urge to uncover the truth, Edith invited Basil Brown, a self-taught but deeply passionate and dedicated archaeologist, to investigate the secrets beneath the mounds. Basil Brown began the excavation with simple tools, patiently brushing away centuries of earth covering the mound. Right from the early days, he noticed unusual traces below the surface. Fragments of wood that had completely decayed but left a clear imprint in the sandy soil. As he dug deeper, he realized he was standing before the outline of a massive ship that had been buried long ago. The vessel measured nearly 27 meters in length and stretched east to west along the mound. No one in England at that time had ever witnessed a discovery quite like this. After days of meticulous work, Basil Brown and his team unearthed the entire hull and ventured inside. Within the ship, they found countless precious artifacts placed alongside the remains of a significant individual. Among these was a slender lyre, perhaps once filling royal halls with ancient music. There was also a sword and a large shield, symbols of strength and leadership for the one entombed in the ship. Particularly remarkable was a silver plate of Byzantine origin, suggesting that the tomb's owner was not only powerful but had wide connections with cultures far beyond England. And standing out among the treasures was the famous Sutton Hoo helmet, adorned with intricate carvings, gold, and bronze fittings, a testament to the peak of Anglo-Saxon craftsmanship and artistry. Archaeologists studied these relics and theorized that this was the final resting place of an Anglo-Saxon king, most likely Redwald, the most powerful ruler of the East Anglia kingdom in the early 7th century. Before this discovery, most historians still considered the Anglo-Saxon era the Dark Ages, a period thought to be bleak and lacking culture following the fall of the Roman Empire. But the findings at Sutton Hoo changed everything. The treasure and exquisite artifacts from the ship burial proved that Anglo-Saxon society was highly developed. They traded with distant lands, created magnificent works of art, and held elaborate burial rituals for their nobility. Today, the treasures from the Sutton Hoo ship burial are carefully preserved and displayed at the British Museum. They stand not only as evidence of the Anglo-Saxons' wealth and craftsmanship, but also as a gateway for us to look back at an age once forgotten. This discovery rewrote history, making Sutton Hoo a symbol of the revival of learning and artistry in what was once thought to be England's darkest age. Number 65. The Ghost Wolf of Ansbach. Germany at the end of the 17th century was a place filled with strange and mysterious tales. One of the most famous legends from that era comes from the small town of Ansbach in Bavaria, a place where, in the autumn of 1685, the villagers faced a terror they had never known before. It all began when an unusually large wolf appeared in the forests near Ansbach. At first, it attacked only the villagers' livestock, but soon after, children began to disappear under mysterious circumstances. Darkness and fear spread across the countryside. People whispered that this was no ordinary predator. Many believed that the spirit of Michael Licht, a former mayor known for his cruelty, who had died not long before, had returned in the form of this wolf to spread terror and take revenge for the wrongs he had committed. The rumors grew more and more intense. Some swore they saw Michael Licht's ghost wandering around his own grave late at night, or caught the gleam of the ghost wolf's eyes in the darkness, looking just as menacing as the former mayor's gaze in life. Memories of a ruthless leader who had brought so much suffering to the villagers only made the panic worse. Unable to bear the ongoing fear, the people of Ansbach decided to put an end to the horror. They dug a deep pit at the edge of the village, covered it with dry leaves, and placed a rooster as bait. One night, the ravenous wolf fell into the trap. Hunters and villagers surrounded it, doing everything they could to bring down the massive animal. The villagers decided that something special needed to be done to warn and deter anyone who might abuse power in the future. They skinned the wolf and dressed its body in the cloak and wig that Michael Licht had worn in his lifetime. To complete the spectacle, they painted a crude mask with the cold features of the former mayor and attached it to the wolf's head. Afterwards, the whole town gathered, pulling the wolf's body up to hang it from a pole in the town square, the very place where, in the past, the greatest crimes of the village had been judged. The scene was both terrifying and dramatic, leaving an unforgettable impression on everyone who witnessed it. For the people of Ansbach, it was not just an act of exorcism, but a message to all rulers. If you govern with cruelty, you may never find peace. The story of the ghost wolf of Ansbach is not only a reflection of the fear of wild beasts, but also a reminder of the power of the community against greedy, ruthless leaders. Thank you for staying with us until the end of today's video. Was there something that caught your interest or made you want to share your thoughts? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. We'll see you in the next video.